Hello. Sorry for being late first. I should apologize. I suppose I was like thinking I should introduce everyone and then be nice about everyone. But anyways, apologies for our delayed behavior. I think Sanjeet is already here because he's commented how we are late and that's expected behavior. But yes,
We
thank
are
you.
all taking a leaf out of Aryan's book today.
Okay, sorry. The weird thing is I could hear myself because I had my YouTube open. So I was like, is my voice echoing? Never mind.
It's my
Not a great
narcissism taking
start
over my
to
life.
this episode, which hopefully will only get better from here. There's little scope for it to get worse.
You are very
Um,
optimistic.
yes. अरे नहीं bar low set करते हैं then you can go only one way, right? Anyways, before we begin our discussion, the second Oscars discussion, second part essentially, I would like to, and this is like serious, not. And sorry,
Yes.
before we say anything, I've got Hemant here. I'm just waiting for his video to come up and then I'll add him. But yes, before anything else, I do want to sort of apologize for any shade throwing that has happened to anyone other than some of the movies which we are talking about. Okay, so like our job as people and as a podcast is not to throw shade at other people
Other
who are not
podcasters,
as
other
part of.
YouTubers. Yeah.
Yes, the movies themselves can deserve some shade and we can throw at them because we are
They
talking
definitely
about
deserve
them in
shade.
both positive and negative ways. Other people connected externally to the film, we apologize if by chance you stumbled upon our lovely live stream and thought that we were out of order in any way, shape or form.
Yeah, we
I
we
would.
will we have decided some boundaries. We crossed that boundary mistakenly last time. We won't do it
Yeah.
again. We will try not to do
Yes.
it. Let's just go.
No, we won't. What do you mean we will try not? It's okay.
Because mistakes
Before
happen anywhere. Mistakes
before
happen
any
anywhere.
before anything, I would also add Hemant to the call. Hemant, how are you?
I
Can you hear
I
us? Hopefully you can.
I was
Uh,
just yeah. Can you guys hear me?
yes, we can. We can. So
Hello.
Hemant is hello. Yeah, we can hear you, Hemant.
Hmm.
Yep.
Can you hear
Good.
us? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So Hemant is he's not appeared on the live stream, but he's of course
Yep.
appeared on the
Yep.
podcast
Yeah.
itself, and he's the person along with Sanjeet, along with two other people who did start the podcast. So I mean, it was very weird when you messaged me saying, "Can I join?" Because I'm like, "This is your thing. Please don't ask me
None of
Yes.
us
to
did.
join this. Join it." Sure. But yes. Anyways, we have convened here. All apologies are out. All introductions are out. I mean, the other ones, Amartya, Varun, and Ahindra were there for. Varun was there in spirit, like genuinely drunk
Extremely full
also
spirit. Fully
in
Good
spiritual.
spirits.
Full
in good
spirit.
spirits for the previous episode. Today I think he's come sober, luckily for us.
We hope.
uh, so
We,
yes, we'll be so
Sir,
our
sir,
topic of
people
discussion.
who recorded on Brahmastra under influence will not diss me for being in a comment section.
Yeah, but they were talking about the movie
fair
quality
enough.
also deserved that, no, like that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, anyways.
There were
uh
there were two drunk people on that
Yeah.
yeah,
podcast that day.
Yes.
and that episode has done the best for us,
Yes.
so we
So
clearly
we
know
should come
what
drunk
works.
more and more. Yes. That's the
Yes.
whole plan.
Anyways, today's episode is about, as I've titled, I think I titled it Made in Bittersweet America, but I do actually think it's more or less bitter America. And I think Amartya had sort of also said that it's Different Faces of America, which I think is a good title also. And I think you get the sort of idea in the two films we are talking today about. One of them is Alexander Payne's The Holdovers. The other one is Cord Jefferson's American Fiction. Both films are films which are, to be at least, about embittered protagonists essentially who are sort of existing at the margins in many ways of the mainstream, at least of, or at least what people expect of them. And then they are sort of either trying to make it into the mainstream or trying to avoid it and still sort of survive in their own niche, if that sort of uh, if they can find it even within sort of what has become modern day America, and I think what defines it. So I think our sort of central discussion will sort of begin with the holdovers and then move on to American Fiction. I think that's I guess that is the fine way in which we can move. And there are a couple of topics which I do want to discuss also like specifically related to both these films. One of them, of course, is to relate with how these both films address the present their protagonists, what roles do their protagonists have? Do they have a redemption? Can they have a redemption? Can they not? Essentially, I think that's a very sort of central thing in both these films, and how it sort of the similarities and differences between them. One of them is just the other thing is to talk about institutions, because a lot of both these films are about people defined by institutions in many ways, different institutions. And the last thing I think is to talk about just who can go against the American system and who can't. Essentially, I think that's something that I was thinking about, especially when watching both these films, and how especially you have the black characters in both of them, which are like in one of them it's a supporting character, and in the other one there's the whole cast essentially centers around black people, and I think it's about which characters in both films sort of come out fighting against what is already established, where they can end up and all that. So I think these are questions that I think like we can mull over once we sort of talk about the things that really struck us about these films. So so first we can just go initial impressions in the sense of like or not like, because I just want to gauge how the mood of this episode is going to be, because the last one was super fractious and fractious in some ways. So
Like the movie, I'm shocked. Like the movie, it was fractious.
So the Holdovers, guys. First, we're going to discuss Alexander Payne. Have you guys seen Alexander Payne's films? Any of
Yes.
you? Varun, Hemant has,
Yes.
Hindula, no.
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't. No.
Okay. You guys have liked who Amartya and Hemant? Have you when you've seen his work?
Yes.
I actually am a big fan of Alexander Payne. Yeah, he's one of
Sure.
the few
Okay. Okay.
original voices. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think I'm also well versed in some of his films. So I was looking forward to
Dare I
this. I
say
know
you're
it's
well versed in painting.
I'm well versed in painting.
That's one of your puns, Rose.
Oh my God, that's horrible. Anyways,
Painful joke.
yes, painful. I mean, painful se bhi zyada painful. Huh? Yes. Anyways,
Congratulations, Dhruv. There is somebody worse than you in this.
I know. I mean, we are
All the-
competing nowadays.
The reviews totally paint the movie. Okay. I'm
Yep.
done.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God. Anyways, I think we are done with
We are all
that.
doing this. Good.
But I think when The Holder was released, I think it was supposed to be a comeback for him, right? Because the last film he did was Downsizing, which was a big financial disaster, and I think a lot
Also bad.
fairly critically panned. Also, I mean, it's got
Also
a divisive response, to be very honest. I think some people do have come out defending it like anything, but anyways, a lot of his films center in and around America, and I think Paul Giamatti has starred in a previous film of his called Sideways, which got me of all people interested in wine for like a week at least. But yes, I think The Holdovers is a very interesting film. I think in the context of the Oscars, I think, and in general, as a I feel this is the type of movie you get every year, almost in some way, shape, or form. Like that one movie which you can watch on TV or a plane or on a plane and still largely not lose anything in terms of the visual appeal or whatever you want to call it like that. I think it's one of those really
theatrical experience.
हाँ मतलब वही what Aryan and sort of Sanjeet
Aryan
are
and
all
Sanjeet
on
always
about.
can be
Yes,
champion, which is
yes.
nonsense.
So I think this is
You guys are
the
nonsense.
nahin, I mean even Varun and I think Hemant, both of you are, because I remember the Dune discussion you guys had. So
Oh,
Yes.
Um,
I am a snob. Yes.
okay, yes,
I'm coming back for the Dune Part 2 podcast. Huh? Hemant, we are
Yes.
going to have
And
long
no
discussion
shade from
about
Oh my
Cam Print
God.
Amartya, okay?
Yes.
Have you seen the IMAX talk between Denis Villeneuve? The sidetrack.
Yes,
Denis
I have.
Villeneuve.
I have.
Man, it's such a pandering word. Okay.
okay. Yeah, no issues. But I think it's interesting to see the Holdovers in today's context in terms of what. So I think Ahindra will begin with you. I think because you finished the film right now, and I think you sort of gave a brief impression, I think, of what the feeling you felt while watching it, after watching it. And I think that's sort of that's key to why the film has struck a chord, I think, in general with a lot of audiences throughout, everywhere in many senses. So yeah, I think we'll start with you and then sort of move around in terms of just impressions on the film as such. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I in general have the least amount of things to say right away because I finished the film right
Finished it.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it felt like a really nice, warm bear hug. That's what it felt like, despite,
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, it being set in freezing cold temperatures where it's
Yeah.
snowing and the landscape is such and the institution is also so rigorous. It almost somewhere
Mm.
reminds you of Mohabbat.
I was about to
Sorry,
say that. I
but
was about to invoke that comparison, but okay.
Man,
Good. You invoked
oh,
it.
I was about to say
but
one flew over the cuckoo's nest, and you said Mohabbat.
sorry.
Lofty comparison. Jesus Christ.
मोहब्बती के साथ ना lofty comparison. I know अमरते, but it's fine. We are allowed. Yeah.
Very lofty comparison. Yes.
But yeah, and that's the first thing that came to me. I was like, oh my God, this is so Mohabbati
This is the
coded.
range we are operating in, by the way, guys. Just putting it out there. This is
I,
the range.
my first thought was actually The Pale Blue Eye. Does anyone remember that film from last year?
Oh,
The
yes,
Christian
yes.
Bale one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Christian Bale one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible film, but
Yeah.
Terrible.
The Scott Cooper
Yeah,
wala,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be like Holdovers.
No, the
No,
school
no.
and the rigidity of this
School and
pressure.
Sure.
The
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
the harshness
Yeah,
of the
just the setting.
environment
Yeah.
is
Sure.
what, yeah, as a
Got
setting.
it.
And
Yeah.
So
of course,
that
we
is
had
what.
to bring in Mohabbat.
What is that?
Somebody else is also listening to the stream, like you.
Like you had said this here, right? Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, you were
But
saying, Ahindrila.
yeah, but it just feels like that warm, comforting hug, and I
Mm-hmm.
tend so like we have already figured out. I watch my movies after a day at work, and this felt like a movie that I can cuddle in bed with and go to like sleep.
Yeah.
So that it just feels very nice and it's warm and especially because I personally had like I studied in a Catholic institution which was quite
Mm-hmm.
rigorous, could relate on so many levels about the aspects of rigidity and discipline and what they want out of you,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're a teenager. So it was quite relatable on several aspects as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is a film I think I can safely rewatch. And that the character of the teacher, which I have forgotten now despite
Paul
having written
Hanum
down,
by
is,
Paul
yes,
Giamatti.
thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that is a character I thought I would certainly have become if I chose to stick to teaching people in academia.
Have
Because
become?
the moment he says, the
Have
moment he
become?
says,
Okay.
Not
would,
will?
so, no, I don't operate in academia, but the point is he, when he says in that bar, I can buy things, I can buy whatever you guys would like to imbibe. I was like, yes,
Yes.
I would use that word, of course. So
Okay.
that is also a character which was so inherently humorous. Like there's
Hmm.
no outright humor there that's present, but there's so inherent humor present in how he is and how
Hmm.
he is presented and how his character then grooves throughout the rest of the film
Hmm.
is so well done, which is why it just did feel like a very nice film that I can go back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Varun, you can go since you are the Paul Giamatti impersonator essentially for future purposes. Yeah.
I don't
It's
want to
your role
be stuck.
model, right?
I don't want to be stuck in the United States, believe me. But
Okay. I think Sanjeet will be doing the same unto you. So you'll have to bear this. He's the only one who's watching right now. So, yeah.
so no,
Sorry, yes. Go ahead. Hmm.
whenever Oscar season comes about, there's that one movie where everyone's like, oh, it's a middle of the road movie. Usually it's some trash, like what was that Mahershala Ali, Viggo Mortensen
Green
driving
Book.
film?
Green Book.
Yeah,
Green.
right.
That won the
It's stuff
Oscar.
like that. It won
That
the
won the
Oscar.
Oscar. What was that Mahershala Ali and Viggo Mortensen movie that won the
Yeah.
Oscar?
That won the
Yeah.
Oscar. But so usually those are the films you mentally check out of well before time. But I
Yeah.
think the Holdovers has had, and both of the films that we're going to talk about today,
Hmm.
just now, have had this gradual build up of critical acclaim, critical
Yeah.
acclaim, and then popular acclaim as well. Like
Yeah.
it has followed for a change, right? There were
Mm-hmm.
at least with something like say Killers, there was some push and pull. Like Dhruv and I were not as big on the film as Hemant and Sanjeev were.
Yeah.
Just right.
Yeah.
So
Good plug to our episode. Yeah. You can listen to it on the podcast. Yeah.
so I went into it with like, okay, I've never watched an Alexander Payne movie, but I like Giamatti's acting. He's even good in that Neil Berger film, which is set in 1890s Vienna.
Which
Edward
one?
No
Norton
idea.
is in it.
The Illusionist.
The Illusionist, yeah. Yeah.
गाली देने की नहीं जरूरत सर अच्छी चीजें बोलो Holdovers के बारे में
So,
No,
no, and of
It's-
course, I knew him from. I said he was good in that, and
Yes.
he'd been in Billions, which well I'd put up with for 8 years. So
Yes,
like,
same.
come on.
Okay.
So
Oh my god! Wait! You've actually seen all
I
of
have seen
Billions?
it. All of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Oh my
all of
god!
it. Yes.
Man, that's another podcast. Also
Yes.
therapy.
Therapy, full on
If you need
therapy.
it.
So yeah, it was great to.
I will
Just
connect
enjoy it.
Billions with Holdovers, by the way. I have.
So will I. Kelly your
Okay.
point.
Yeah.
Okay, no, you were
So-
saying something, Varun. Finish your thought
The
first,
thing
please.
is that a film like this, when it lives up to your expectations, however low they may be starting out, and in fact, actually, probably you enjoy it more because you had no expectations of it. Because I don't know what to expect out of an Alexander Payne film, and
Sorry, Pixel Baba. I don't know. I've liked everything he's made, more or less, Pixel.
I
So I
loved
don't know who
Nebraska.
you're. Nebraska is really
I loved
nice.
Hmm.
It's about grumpy old. Again, Varun, one more person you can probably relate to. Grumpy
Yes.
old. We
Grumpy
both
old
are.
man.
Bruce
Yeah,
Lee
that
character. Any Bruce
Yeah,
Lee
yeah, yeah.
character, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, they're good. Anyways, like if you've seen an Alexander Payne movie, I think you can sort of get the vibe of this also. There is a
probably
similarity
right.
in it. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that to me it was about the fact that we come from a culture which deifies teachers, right? But very few of our teachers are actually really that good. And here is a teacher who's caught in that tussle of wanting to be a good teacher, but also being an
Yeah.
absolute dick to these kids.
Yeah.
So it made me appreciate the teachers who put in time and effort into their classes with me. But again, like Angela pointed out, the Catholicism, because I had the misfortune of going to a pretty Christian college for like postgrad, and
Yeah.
you can't drum that sort of rigidity into a person in their early 20s. It's next to impossible. You need to indoctrinate them from a much younger age, which is what is happening in this film. So
But is he
I could go
indoctrinating
around
them
the-
about Christianity?
No, I
I
mean,
don't
but
think so. He's not
it
particularly
is
religious.
pseudo
is he?
religious. The structure of the school is pseudo religious.
Yes, of
Right.
course.
And this
Yeah.
is Massachusetts. I mean,
Hmm.
spotlight. Hello.
Yes.
So
Not even Spotlight. All the other conservative stuff. Spotlight तो मतलब अलग ही range में चला गया.
I mean, अलग नहीं है उतना range considering the age range is not that different
Yes,
sometimes.
that
So,
is
yes.
true.
Yeah.
So it was very
Uh,
enjoyable.
anyways.
It was also fairly light because Oscar season is also all these heavy films about
That's
nuclear
interesting
war.
that you say it's light because I'll one of the
No,
things
I mean there are
do like
darker
about it.
themes which
Yeah.
we'll get to. The thing is that they still stay accessible.
Sure.
They don't require you to invest in the Vietnam War. You're investing in it in the way Davin Joy Randolph's character does.
Yeah.
You don't need to
Yeah.
be like forced into it all. So
Sure. There's no like
Fairly
flash
time
forward
travel.
back wherever to the war like the war front is not ever shown
Yeah.
but it's sort of felt throughout kind of like that.
yeah.
Amartya and then I'll go to him and then yeah.
Can you guys continue? I'm just
No issues. Hemant, you go ahead please.
I liked it. I mean, it's okay. I liken it to a lot of those. So there are some directors I associate with this kind of movie, where or at least some actors that act in these kind of movies, like any George Clooney movie. Like you look at Descendants, right? This is very much
Yeah.
where like almost all of his characters, Alexander Payne's characters are all bitter, unlikable people surrounded by people who are wanting to be liked. And it's
Yep.
like there's a line that's there in actually the other movie in in
American Fiction.
American Fiction, where his girlfriend tells him that
Yep,
it's not
I-
a big badge of honor to not be liked. It's
Yes,
it's
yeah.
not wanting to be liked, and that's something
Yeah.
that this guy has for him it is a badge of honor that he knows that
Yeah.
he is someone who's smarter than other people, and
Yeah.
he has no problem with it. He is, but the issue is that he's alone in the end, and he's aware of that. Which very well aware of that, like shot of him finding out that the nice lady who was being nice to him is just being nice to him. He's just not. He's and she's married, and he
Oh
gets
yes,
that.
Mrs.
Okay, there is
Crane,
a
right?
distance.
Crane, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Miss
Yeah.
Crane.
Yeah.
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 And that distance gets formed between like you feel like he's oh, finally someone likes me, someone's interested in me, and then
Yeah.
finally he gets that, oh no, like that string gets
Yeah.
cut off very easily.
Yeah.
And that's a very grounding moment, and that's in all of Alexander Payne movies. It's there in Sideways, it's there in Descendants, it's there in About Schmidt, because Jack Nicholson knew no shit, like the most unlikable person possible. And
Yeah.
that's why I liked it, because it was so. And I don't know why, maybe it's a me problem, is that in the whole movie I was thinking something bad is about to happen, like there is some sort of tension, like something about, it's like dude, someone's about to, like, this is some this feeling, the same feeling I got when I was watching And It Was Right, was Dead Poet Society. The first time I ever watched it, I was like, कुछ तो like मतलब कोई मरने वाला है, like this seems too
This
good to
can't
be
be so
true.
feel good all the time. This
This can't
so
be feel good. Yeah,
Okay.
this much hope is too bad for you. Okay,
This much hope is too
and then,
much.
Yeah, which is why I mean, sorry to interrupt. Which is why that when he goes to the gym and has that
Oh
accident a
God.
little bit, I was like, we have arrived. This
yeah,
is where the film
But that's
turns something
followed
else.
by a comedic set piece. Like that's actually the broadest comedic bit of the film.
and
Actually,
that,
like
that
it's
was a big
Yeah.
callback to Reservoir Dogs, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
yeah, this is the range you're working on. So
yeah.
Yes,
and
exactly.
what I liked about it was that their relationship was more of a knowing understanding. In 2 weeks, how much can you understand about a person?
Yeah.
That's the whole story, really. Is it how much can you really know a person's depth? Is it in the 2 weeks? Which Green Book, when you mentioned, I was like, man, that did not do it. There was no
Yeah.
depth there to dig. Okay, it's like
All
it's
it
like a
took to
grave.
remove
It's like a
racism is
graveyard
Kentucky
made on a
Fried Chicken.
highway. Yeah.
All it took to remove racism is Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's what
Yeah.
Green Book is telling us. Yes.
That's
God.
the connecting.
You remember
thread.
it that much? Also, I am surprised. But okay.
Yes.
The
Unfortunately.
only film I associate with Kentucky Fried Chicken is Spencer now. Anyways.
Oh,
Uh,
so you don't
Hemant
remember that
mentioned
movie?
people who know that they are smarter than others and they are brutish and brutal about that attitude towards others. Amartya is that person.
I think there's another person sitting to the right of him
Nobody's
who's
pointing
like
to the only woman in this movie.
that.
Nobody's pointing to that. But show you.
No, but okay. Anyways, so sorry, Amartya, go ahead. But I think I'll just add like a bit to what Hemant said. I think what he's talking about, the mood of the film, that sort of something bad is going to happen essentially. To me, I think the film works a fair bit because there's always an edginess to the film only. Edginess to the humor, to the way people are talking to each other. Like there's, people say, and I'm not sure if this is the correct way in which people should interact, but brutal honesty is sort of, it's almost like these people know what they've gone through and what they are going through. Except for maybe Paul Giamatti. I think he's the one who's maybe he's sort of walled himself off of, a lot of the other things but both Devine Joy Randolph's character and Dominic Sessa, who I think is fantastic in this film, both their characters are actually, vulnerable. I think, like, consistently they are almost, I feel, on the verge of breaking down. Like they are holding back that final moment of just crying, like badly crying in front of the other person.
Kind of like a sustained Paul Mescal from After Sun. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like
Yes.
a raw
it was
nerve.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are basically like
It
a
was
raw
a good.
nerve.
I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
and the thing is, like, the kind of like social strata that they come from, right? Where
Yeah.
Yes,
he's surrounded by people who are rich. Like he's the one who's also like kind of rich, and he's just the guy. Like how in every movie you have like in the hostel you will have the one guy, oh, mere papa mujhe paisa bhejte hain gift ke liye.
Yes.
Mohabbat hai, right? You remember Mohabbat hai? And
Again,
Uday
this is
Chopra
the
from
range.
Mohabbat.
Again, this is the range.
And so this is how you humanize that character,
Yeah.
and how you even give him a role model because he
Mhm.
doesn't have one. and
Yeah.
and that's where Paul Giamatti gets his his resolution, his character's
Sure.
resolution is that he gets to be that role model. And that's
Yeah.
there in a lot of stories. In Nebraska is the same theme, like
Mhm.
Bruce Dern is supposed to be in the whole movie, he's pushed to be the role model, and he's like, no, I'm not
He's
doing it,
not.
man.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't want to be.
Yeah.
And the one who's actually the role model is the lady from the June. I forgot her name.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
the
yeah.
sweet
Got
old
it.
lady. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Forgotten. Sorry.
yeah,
Yep.
and
June Quib
that's
or
something
Squib.
like
June Squibb, I
Squib.
think.
Yeah,
Quib,
June
yes.
Squib.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay. Mhm.
yeah. And she's the one who gets it. That was like the big like the a
Switch,
trap
almost
that
like
they
a. Sure.
Texas switch that
Mhm.
they did for role models. But in this, that
Sure.
wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And I loved that. And now, best part of the movie was, of course, the inspector from Only Murders in the Building. She probably was the glue of the whole movie, right?
yes.
And she was the one directly affected. Like the whole movie was kind of like a period piece
Mm.
with
It's
like the
very, yeah,
aftermath.
it's doing the whole 70s vintage
Mm-hmm.
cinematography.
And
There's
Yeah,
the
oh
yeah,
my
head title
dude,
that's what.
credits,
zoom
Yeah,
lens,
that's
man.
what
That
struck
zoom
me.
lens
zoom
was on point.
lens, which is going
Yeah,
here
On
and
point.
there.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Then
all
there's
telephoto shots
wipes,
for the
and
yeah.
yeah,
अरे
you get
vibes
wipes,
man
you get
मतलब fading
resolves. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
And
So,
for some reason everyone is wearing a muffler, and even like the style that they were going for was to call back to that
yeah.
Panic in Needle Park, like that kind of vibe. And
Mm.
then you get grounded by like nothing bad is going to happen. I was talking about like
Yep.
how I was feeling something bad is going to happen was that this
Yeah.
is just the feeling that people had. This is like just the
Mhm.
anxiety that people had of
Yeah.
like, oh, we're just surrounded by horrible things that are happening, something will happen to me
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when it doesn't happen, what do you do? Like, that's worse because it's like a
Yeah.
torturous life, right? And that's what
Yep.
the kid was going through, is that he
Yep.
has no help, he has no fallback mechanism, he
Yeah.
has no way of actually coping with whatever's going on
Mhm.
around him, and no one understands him. And they
Mhm.
finally finds the one person that understands him, and even that, and that's the worst person that you can really think of to understand
yes.
you. You'll be
Yeah.
ashamed of, oh my god, why do I have, he's the loser friend from
Yeah.
school. He's like, oh no, why do you love me? Stop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the dynamic that worked there for me at
Yeah. Yeah.
least. Yeah.
No, no, it makes sense. Amartya?
So again, like Hemant said, when I started the movie, the instinct was something is going to happen. There must be an
Mm.
inciting incident. कुछ तो होने वाला है. Something or the
Mhm.
other, could be a road trip, could be something, could be an
Mhm.
accident, could be something. But even when the accident happened, even when the kids were taken away and this kid was left alone,
Mm.
I was always waiting for the thing to happen until I
Mm.
realized halfway through the movie that, oh, it's not going to happen because the
Mm.
movie is very interested in just being this.
Mm.
It's just being grounded into this. And
Mhm.
what I loved is that, like, Payne is very much interested in making a 70s movie for 2024,
Yeah.
just trying to evoke the, not even the feeling of the 1970s, the look of the 1970s, the tone of the 1970s,
Yep.
all of it,
Yep.
including the paranoia, including the uncertainty and all of it, and
Mhm.
also trying to transpose it into 2024 to a certain degree.
Yeah.
That's what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
But of course, the best part of this is the fact that, it's also kind of showing the familial unit, not
Yep.
just connected by blood, but connected by circumstances.
Yep.
And of course, the teacher and the student relationship, and
Mm.
the relationship between two people completely belonging to a different strata, completely belonging to different circumstances, completely belonging to different
But they are
status.
also joined together by the fact that they are Barton boys, right? Quote unquote. Barton is the
Yes.
college where the
True, but
film is
also, I
set,
mean,
and
the community difference is there, right? The
Yeah.
yeah.
very like, identity
Very much.
difference which still
Hmm.
existed in America back then,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
at least
Yeah.
Back
most of
then,
the
क्या
way.
अभी भी है. Back
Uh-huh.
then, क्या. But the
Mm-hmm.
point being, I think it's highlighting it by, focus on pointing out the flaws of the present by focusing on the flaws in the past and showing the similarities and yet showing the differences,
Yeah.
showing the kernels of hope within those moments and within those
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah. I
But
think.
of course,
No.
the
No.
best part of this movie is the
Sorry. Go
fact
ahead.
that
Yeah.
this is just at the end of the day, this is just a simple, heartwarming Christmas movie.
Hmm.
But it is not saccharine. It is not a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Hmm. Hmm.
It is not. It is not any of that stuff. It's just evoking the spirit of Christmas without being so overt about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to counter it necessarily, but I think towards the end is where I slightly lose it with the film, in the sense that it reaches a point where it has to offer that, completion arc for almost all the people. And I was like, I'm not sure this seems fitting for this film almost. Like it was, because so much of it to me, whatever you guys said about, the event happening, I don't think I was necessarily waiting for the event to happen, because I just thought the whole film always had that edgy, as I mentioned, the edginess to it was there. When people talk to each other, when the children are talking to each other, they're like brutal, blunt, really terrible people to each other.
Like
Even
kids are.
when,
Like
yeah,
any
what's
other teenager,
kids are,
bro.
like we
They
are.
no,
are
I,
any
I
different.
know, but that's the film's positive, right? In my sense, that's
You're just
the way
calling
it
them
sort of.
terrible people as if they're, the protagonists of Zone of Interest.
No, Kuntz is really terrible, huh? The he's
No,
kind
school
of
kids are
racist.
terrible. School kids
Yeah,
are
No, no, the
terrible.
Kuntz is the guy who's like or he's like the quote unquote villain only, if you want to call a person a villain, who's like racist, classist, whatever. Like he's
yeah,
the
like
person
a
who gets
bunch of
thrown
people.
out.
So
Like a bunch
70s
of
come
people
again.
born.
Well, he's kind of a
He's a
stand-in for
baby
all of the
boomer.
people. Yeah, exactly, right. Like he's a stand-in for that generation,
Yep.
Yes.
coping with whatever is around them, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
how we have our aunties in weddings, right? Like
Yeah.
how the
Yes.
same way they are growing up around these people, and all
Yeah.
their that negativity or whatever. I don't have a word for it, but
Yeah.
Also,
all
this is
that
the
is just
seven.
imbued into you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this is set in the mid 70s. These baby boomers were the
No,
ones who
this
were
set in 1970, 69, 70.
1970.
70.
This
Hmm.
was
Yeah.
70. So these people,
Proper
went
baby
through what
boomers
they.
born in the mid 50s.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So basically, that they had
Hmm.
heard of the Great War, quote unquote. They hate the
Hmm.
hippie culture. They hate.
Do they
They
hate?
think that
Do they
they
hate
can.
the
Oh,
hippie
they are
culture?
the hippie culture. The
They,
baby boomers were
They
part of
used
the
to be,
hippie.
Yeah.
but they now hate it. They used to be, but they now hate
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
Okay.
now,
that's number one.
not
Yeah.
then.
they are
No, no.
As in
DiCaprio
I'm
from
you,
just
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
as in you
yeah,
think
basically.
oh
Yeah.
god, as in you think the Barton boys will hate the hippie culture in particular because they are at a
In
position where
their
that
in
seems
their
lower to
senior
them.
in their
Yeah,
senior
maybe.
years. Not at the time.
Maybe.
At the
Sure.
time,
Not as the
liking
time
the
passes.
Beatles was cool, right?
Okay, because
Yeah.
there is they are watching. She's watching the TV show which has actually fairly hippie-ish
Yeah.
people
But
So
participating
that's
in
the
it.
that was
American
Yeah.
culture.
that was
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
part of the culture. It's like how we see hipsters in our culture, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Got it.
Like
And
Okay.
of
American
course there was
Graffiti and all those other films that were coming out
and
then.
of course there was the
Which one?
ongoing Vietnam War. There
American
was the
Graffiti.
Vietnam War.
American Graffiti. Okay. Sorry. Yes, Amartya, you were saying.
And of course there was Vietnam War, which
Yeah, I mean
again,
that the presence of that is there, like in
It
terms of
haunts the
not.
whole film.
yeah, it's
Huh,
always
Yeah.
yeah.
This
I
It's
mean,
movie
always
was
yeah.
felt like a well. This movie felt like. Have you seen The Messengers? The one
which one?
where there are two military officers who go around telling people about the Iraq War that people like they know died.
Hmm.
This is a Woody
No, but
I
Harrelson
reckon
movie.
is that based on the guys who stood up during a lecture Bush was giving somewhere and they started quoting stats at him?
Yes, of how
yes,
many
That's
people have died and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that Woody Harrelson character is based on him. And
Okay.
this is like a sort of a kind of I don't know. The comparison comes with just the tone of the movie. Is it reactionary to something that's already happened, where
Hmm.
okay, people have her son has died,
Hmm.
and how it's affecting her is how we are seeing it, rather
Yep.
than seeing the actual war and how it's politically being that narrative is
Huh.
being pushed. The
Yeah.
narrative here is only of just the people who are being affected by that and by the times, rather than
Yeah.
rather
directly
than
by the whole
yeah.
political narrative that's going on. This is not like a Oliver Stone movie. Like so, this is
Yes.
Thank
somewhat.
God it isn't.
Oliver
Thank
Stone
God.
making a boarding school movie would be something else
No,
anyway.
no,
No,
but,
obviously.
no, but what you're saying, Hemant, actually, for me at least, that works in the film's favor,
Yeah.
more or less,
Exactly. Yeah.
essentially, because I
Yeah.
think it's not just the Mary character, the Randolph's character, which we'll go into more detail about, I think, and that's sort of an interesting point, which I think the film sort of does justice to and doesn't do justice to also, which I think
Yes.
we can talk about, but I just really liked. the fact that it's not just her who's reeling from what is happening, but also he's fearing this. Dominic Sessa character is fearing
Yeah.
going to the military school from where he might actually be taken to Vietnam, and and
Yeah,
then
the draft,
there's
the controversial
Full
yeah,
metal
draft.
yeah,
jacket.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
draft,
yeah.
basically, yeah.
And then there's Paul Giamatti, whose attitude in general, I think in one point he's like the world has gone to shits essentially, and and that it's a bitter place and whatever, and like I don't know how to teach these students where and how to start their lives in the way I
But
want them to, teach them essentially, and I think
that,
that sort of pessimism is there, and then it's contrasted, I think, rather brilliantly, I think, with something like a Christmas party where people, are sort of celebrating everything, and then
yeah,
you have this so I really like this moment with Mary, where she's told ki stop playing that song, play something more upbeat, and it's just so like
Don't
Yes.
touch
hurtful in that
it.
moment, because you know what that means to
Yes.
her,
Yeah,
essentially. So I
yeah,
think,
but
yeah.
what you're saying about the Giamatti character's bitterness, right? If you
yeah.
look at it in context to the Vietnam situation, he is
Hmm.
part of the quote unquote greatest generation, right? The ones who
Hmm.
went
Yes.
off for World War II.
Yeah.
He's done his time in service, and that's so telling, right? That we did,
I don't
as
think
in
he's
he
done his
But
time
I
in
don't
service.
think he went.
He
hold
No, he
on,
did.
I'll
admits
follow.
he
Yeah.
doesn't, right?
He
Hmm.
he says that I had to stay back in the States,
Yes.
but there were
Hmm.
those
Yes.
people who were mobilized, but they stayed, like the British Home Army, the
Hmm.
famous sitcom Dad's Army is based on
Hmm.
the Home Army in Britain. So
Yes.
What a
here in
reference.
India, the Auxiliary Corps, for instance.
Yeah.
So these were people who had sort of experienced loss of somebody already in that massive catastrophe, 50 million people dead.
Hmm. Hmm.
And now you're seeing your government entrenched in a war it had no business getting into, and your
Hmm.
students are getting packed off to these wars.
Yeah.
If your colleague happens to be the mother of one of those students. So that
Hmm.
Yes.
bitterness is very well earned in that sense.
Yeah.
Because you're like,
Mm.
man, what is the point of teaching these kids? What is the point
Yeah.
of getting to know them when within 5 years I could know that they're dead? Because the Americans would take a long time
Yeah.
to leave
No, but
Vietnam.
Varun, I think with Mary's character, it's even more hurtful because she knows that Barton boys don't go to the war, and her son is the
Our
only
son had
exception
to
who
go.
did.
Yeah.
And I think
So
that's yeah,
no,
that's
so
the sort of
his
covert
students,
way.
in
And
a
it's a
sense, people could also
yeah.
volunteer, right? And not
Yes.
just his
Yes.
students, but also the fact that just general mobilization in terms of
Mhm.
the Vietnam draft, which was
Hmm.
so controversial because it wasn't
Yeah.
a world war, it was a colonial,
Hmm.
neo imperialist kind of
Hmm.
expedition.
Hmm.
So that is also something people like him are juggling with, that it's not really a just war, which
Hmm.
World War II could still be called.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
here we
And
are.
he even echoes that, right, with like his view on how history works and how he feels
Yeah,
history is something that can be
Hmm.
learned from, and that's what he's
Yeah.
referencing to his own
yeah.
generation. Yeah,
Yeah, in the
that we
museum, you
don't
mean,
have.
right? This scene in the museum where he's talking about history and how
And
how
it
Yeah,
tells us about our
that
present.
informs the present, right? I think something like
Yeah.
yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, other thoughts, guys. I mean, I have specifics to sort of address, but any other particular thoughts that you thought were like really either moving or either maybe problems also with the film, maybe that sort of you thought the film couldn't accommodate in its runtime. It's fairly. I actually think it's quite a long movie in terms of just
You know,
it.
here's
Yeah.
the interesting part that yeah, you were also saying, right, Ki by the end you were almost kind of losing it. Like Dhruv, you were
Yeah, I
saying
mean,
that.
I think the moment when the film loses Davine Joy Randolph, it basically kind of just pushes her to
Yes,
the side.
pushes her to the
I'm
side
like,
somewhat. Yes.
that whole stretch with Sessa and Giamatti
Giamatti.
alone is good, but I do think it lacks her presence there, particularly because I think
Yes.
her dynamic in general is so fascinating because she's in the position where she's consistently defending um, the Sessa character, but also saying that she's annoyed that her son is lying in the coffin and these entitled pricks are essentially lying
Yes.
cozily in their beds. Like that tension is so like
It's
painful.
I feel like
Yeah,
her bitterness is a lot more interesting than Paul Giamatti's or Sessa's bitterness.
It,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
the
Because
duty. It's the duty versus the humanity kind of a thing, right? It's the
Yeah.
right.
it's showcasing of humanity versus having a sense of duty anyway.
Mhm.
But
But I think I thought that the regret that that Jessa and Paul Giamatti have is
Mhm.
that she's able to move on
Mhm.
even
yes,
after all this, and
Yeah.
they are not able to,
They
and
are not able
that's
to.
what
Yeah.
that's the humanizing factor, and very like, it grounds both of them, is that
Hmm.
because of her they're able to learn that, okay, if she can move on, you can
If
move
Hmm.
you
on.
can move
So
on, we can definitely
so
move on.
grow up, yeah.
Hmm.
So that
Yeah.
was the
So,
I thought that was the finale, was that you
Sure.
are expecting this, like because I was in that trip of like, oh, I'm expecting something, then it
Hmm.
didn't come.
yes.
It came by the fact that, oh, she moved on. It was so easy. So I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to be right here, is what she says. And
Yeah.
that's
Nee,
what
but is
causes
that
these
moving
people to
on?
change, and
No, but
that
is
was the
that a
change.
moving on? Or is that just sticking around so that you kind
That's
of?
I
coming
mean,
to terms with it
that is
in
also
a
kind
way.
of moving on
Oh,
only,
it
na?
is actually, right, because
Sticking
that's the
around,
life that she
accepting,
has.
and
And then she even
yeah.
Hmm.
says that the kids that's going to be born is going to be named after her son.
Yes,
Yeah.
her son is going to be named after. Yes,
Her
the
sister's
her
son is going to be
her
named after her.
sister's son is going to be named after
After her son.
her son Curtis, I think, right? Who
Yes.
was who lost his life. So yeah, I mean,
I
So
think
what?
yeah,
So
I see what you.
hold on. What I wanted to bring up for a second is the fact that because we are thinking that the movie is lengthwise, it's feeling like it is stretched out or
I mean, for
something.
me
Which
it was, but I'm
no, no,
sure
I
there's
agree with
different.
you.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
agree with you somewhat.
Hmm.
I think what is fascinating is the movie which Payne is mostly inspired by. The
Hmm.
this movie Holdovers
Hmm.
is
mm,
mostly inspired by a 1934 French comedy called Merlus.
Okay.
I am telling inspired by
Hmm.
because if you read about the main character and if you see the main character called Merlus, which basically
Hmm.
means that cod smell. Cod smell matlab fish ka smell. So basically he is
Ah.
that
Okay.
teacher.
Hmm.
Yeah.
mm,
And
Hmm.
he is the one who's left to fend for the kids when during Christmas when all the
Hmm.
other teachers are making excuses and going off
Hmm.
to celebrate Christmas Eve while he's supposed to celebrate Christmas and all that
Hmm.
stuff. That movie is 75 minutes long. That movie is basically a Christmas story, kind of that this
Hmm.
teacher who looks like according to the kids, who looks like a demon, who is so rude, who
Hmm.
is so angry all the time,
Right.
and who the kids
Hmm.
also kind of,
Yeah, A Christmas Carol, right? Yeah.
yeah, basically, who the
Scrooge.
kids are also trying to always irritate, by putting
Mhm.
a pinprick over on his chair or something like that all the time.
Yeah.
So movie's end is very heartwarming because it shows that he has a heart of gold, kind of, and the
Yeah,
ending
that's his
of that.
transformation. No, yeah,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
many ways. Yeah.
The ending of that movie is basically the ending we kind of see, except it is inverted. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
In the original movie, the guy gets a promotion. In
Hmm.
the inverted movie,
Hmm.
the guy is fired.
Well, yeah, he lies.
Yes.
He lies,
Yes.
breaks the code which he valued to sort of,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just saying ki, if that is the skeleton, it's
Hmm.
fascinating how Payne takes the basic skeleton of the Christmas
Hmm.
story and then
Hmm.
applies it to the cynicism of the 70s, but yet
Yeah.
the humanity that had been present among the populace within the 70s.
Yeah.
And how he
Yeah. Yeah.
tries to put it, and within that, he's also putting in context.
Hmm.
And of course, there's the fact that, you know, there's the filming aspect of it all, which I am very sure is very much taken from Hal Ashby's The Last Detail.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
yeah,
okay. I
yeah.
was gonna say this has stolen a lot from the last detail. This movie,
Yes.
even
Yeah.
the ending, the
The
shot,
transitions,
the
Jesus
long road.
Christ. Yeah, the
Hmm.
transition, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
when I was watching The Last Detail, I was thinking, what is Hal Ashby doing? He's like completely doing fade in, fade out transitions, like 2 minutes, 2 minutes after, 2 minutes after, 2 minutes after. I'm like, what are you doing? But
You get liberated from studio control. You go a bit wild for 1 or 2 years,
yeah,
I think, and then you
but it's
find your
also
footing.
why I'm saying it's taken from The Last Detail is because the third act of it, the entire movie is basically two soldiers who are given the sheet detail to
Hmm.
escort one of the soldiers who had stolen some meager amount, but he's been
This is the
yeah.
film that Richard Linklater remade essentially with Last Flag Flying or something
Here's the
like that. I
interesting
Yes,
think.
bit.
Yeah.
That
yes.
was not a remake. That was a sequel.
That was a
Okay,
That's
sequel.
the
That
whatever
was
it.
interesting.
Okay,
that
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's what happened, right?
yeah.
The guy was going to be sent off to prison, and these two soldiers thought before he's being sent off to prison,
Hmm.
let's show him what life actually is like.
Hmm.
So
Got
again,
it.
that is
Hmm.
like a growing up, a coming of age, and yet being
Hmm.
disillusioned by what the government actually is, disillusioned by bureaucracy, disillusioned by middle America
right.
and how
And
America actually is.
it's kind of too straight. It's kind of too straight. What are they called? Statement? Is it a
Yeah,
straight
two
man?
straight
Right.
men.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Two
two straight
straight
men. Yeah.
men, and then having to deal with all the characters that are outside being
Yes.
like indoctrinated by the system of the
Yep.
Yes.
military. And that was the whole commentary that Hal Ashby was making.
Yeah,
And
Sure.
this
exactly.
was very similar in that they are surrounded by people who are indoctrinated, and they themselves have to find a way to move on and actually
Yes.
have a way to cope with whatever is happening around them.
Mm.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, but
Sessa and
like
Very similar to
Giamatti,
what he was trying
the
to say about 2024.
no, but
The
I think
Sessa and
the
Giamatti bit is definitely feeling inspired from Hal Ashby, especially the part where Giamatti takes him to Boston for the Christmas
yeah.
trip. That
Ah,
feels
sorry.
very
I
much from that.
I
Yeah,
just
sorry,
want to
Varun, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. One thing that stayed with me about the film was that it's sort of talking very directly, but also not really trying to address it in as many words. Is the weaponization of education by the
Hmm.
American government. So
Hmm.
post World War II, the I think American Congress enacted the GI Bill, which gave
Hmm.
all returning soldiers an opportunity to go to university. And
Hmm.
American
Hmm.
universities, as I'm sure everyone knows, are
Hmm.
expensive to go to.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so, no, and in their country, because there's a thing of dignity of labor and stuff, not everyone needs a university education, as opposed to a country like ours, where going to college is mandatory for basically even becoming a
Hmm.
peon in a government office.
Hmm.
And how that one thing which was supposed to be a thank you after this war that they
Hmm.
had fought is turned into a thing of, oh, if you join up and go and fight in Vietnam,
Hmm.
we'll send
Hmm.
you to university free of cost,
Yeah.
when you come back.
That's the reason why he enlists, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
her son
exactly.
and Devin Joy
Hmm.
Randolph's character's son enlists.
Hmm. Hmm.
And because the film is centered around a school, I think that's a very interesting thing to go into, because
Yeah.
education is supposed to set you free. Here the
Hmm.
promise of education is enslaving you to
That is
a
Shatley Neal. Yeah.
political system and a military industrial complex which is
Yeah.
in every way expansionist. It's not,
Hmm.
it's not like most of, I suppose, the Commonwealth's armed forces, where
Hmm.
enlistment, I think the draft has been closed in the Commonwealth for the longest time. England
Hmm.
stopped
Hmm.
national service or created an alternative in the 60s.
Hmm.
We've never had conscription in our country.
Hmm.
So, whereas the Americans, who had no business being in this country,
Hmm.
with a bunch of rice farmers up against them,
Hmm.
were like, no, we must go and fight the big fight
Yeah.
rather than the good fight. And to do that, they were trying to, grab
Yeah.
these people. And we see it in Forrest Gump as well, where they're like, okay, what? It doesn't matter if he's a bit mentally deficient, as
Hmm.
long as he can be trained to pick up a rifle and
We
fire.
need able bodies. Basically, they needed
Hmm.
able bodies to
Yeah,
be sent there. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think, and I think that's very much answers, not answers, but like even like talks about the sort of institutional aspect of this film and how it's sort of acting against how that sort of thrusts itself upon individuals actually in the film, and how in many ways the act of rebellion actually at the end of the film is from Giamatti's character at least is to
Hmm.
break that code in many ways and sort of try and sort of get Cesar not involved in that military cycle in some senses, and also do his own thing which he's been putting off throughout his life essentially, which I think is the sort of too neat element. I think like he leaves
I mean,
drinking, he does like he like
yeah.
leaves everything, and I'm like itna
Didn't you
to
notice
it
I
that
mean,
felt
you
too
he
shouldn't be
whatever.
drinking
was
bourbon anyway.
Okay, fine, Varun. You
really?
have modeled yourself
So
on
what
him, so
should he
you
be
decide the
drinking?
alcohol
Chilla.
he
What should he
drinks.
be drinking? Tista.
Single
No,
malt
it's
beer, sir.
soju. He drinks
Single malt.
soju.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. No, I
Yeah.
mean, you also notice that the Coons characters has a haircut in the end, right?
Hmm.
He's part of that. He's about to go into that military industrial
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
complex.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that path is down there, ready to go
Yeah.
for Cesa's
Hmm.
character. So
Mm-hmm.
Paul Giamatti knows that that's going to happen, and
Yeah.
he doesn't want the inevitability to be real.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, you see these because we pointed out Kunz's racism, right? You
Mm-hmm.
see it in events like the My Lai massacre. I was reading about it a couple of days
Mm-hmm.
ago for no good reason, really. But as opposed to something like World War II, again, you keep
Mm-hmm.
going back to that because the Americans were an isolationist state before that, and they
Hmm.
intervene in this war. And while there were war crimes committed by them, nothing was dictated by the fact that these are lesser people.
Yeah.
It was a
Yes.
war crime in the sense that frustration and
Hmm.
anger and a bunch of other things, and generally there you will have bad apples everywhere in
Yeah.
every organization, and
Hmm.
that manifested itself in a certain,
Hmm.
as opposed to the Russians and their war crimes, which were very much about victor's justice and
Yep.
enacting it in a certain way.
Hmm.
But you can see why a Kuntz would be in a 70s or a 60s American army, which
Yep.
believes it is ethnically
Superior.
superior
Yeah.
and thus has a right to kill these people in whichever
Yeah.
way possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
add a
Yeah.
little
Sure.
bit. No, no,
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to add a little bit. I can
Hmm.
go after you, that's fine.
Hmm. No, no, no. You were saying I was about to call, tell you only to say whatever you were thinking. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, so what I wanted to like I that's the most common thing that I think most movies nowadays are based upon, and
Hmm.
like a harking call to the same is class
Hmm.
consciousness.
Hmm.
And that somehow it just feels like class consciousness is peppered throughout the holdovers, like it
Hmm.
is present very
Hmm.
much in
Yeah.
American fiction, which the film doesn't realize it that's potential, but
Hmm.
the thing is the holdovers has so much class consciousness peppered throughout it. And
Hmm.
I think the movie does play into the current trope of bringing the class consciousness onto the screen,
Hmm.
because there have been a lot of movies made in 2023 and over the last few years which
Hmm.
are incessantly talking about the privileged being so privileged that they don't realize their own privilege
Yeah.
until and unless you basically put them
Put.
beside somebody who is less privileged,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then deriving humor out of that element of
Hmm.
privilege. What the
Yep.
holdovers does so poignantly is they don't point that privilege outright to you with
Hmm.
dialogues,
Yep.
but because of their conversations itself, the way they are
Yep.
presenting themselves,
Hmm.
the constantly mentioning things like, oh, these Burton boys are here, they're eating this, they're doing whatever they want, and my son
Yep.
is in the grave,
Yep.
and things like that. You are constantly made to realize it
Yep.
no matter what, which is something I think maybe one of the reasons why it is in the Oscars race in the first place, because it
Hmm.
does that better than most movies that have come out, at least in the past couple of
Yep.
years, according to me.
Yep.
So that it does very well. Like, if it's not eat the rich, quote unquote, but it does help to drive home that sentiment that
Yep.
this is what you are supposed to think about when you
Yep.
finish this movie and start thinking about something.
Without really
In
beating you into submission, right, about it, which I think
Yeah,
is the
without
bigger
really
sort of.
being the
Yeah.
triangle
Yeah,
of
yeah,
sadness.
yeah.
That's
Basically
not
being
using
Yes.
subtle.
guilt. Yeah,
Yes,
I would.
yeah.
Yeah.
Basically being subtle and not trying to force you into thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
which
Yeah.
is
I
which
mean. Yeah.
is
guilt
very
is
nicely done.
Hmm.
sorry,
Mm.
sorry.
Sorry,
Sorry,
sorry.
Varun. Use. Hmm?
No, the thing about guilt is also because the film looks at each individual as themselves, and thus you've
Hmm.
got your own quota of guilt or remorse or whatever. It's
Hmm.
not going to force upon you
But
something.
that's the thing. Like, white guilt
Right.
is something that both the movies talk
Yeah.
about and deal with, and in very different quotients deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this certainly is
Do you
playing
think
into
the
the white
holdovers
guilt
deals
of
with
the
it?
1970s.
Do you
Yeah,
think the
it of
holdovers
course
deals with it?
deals with it, but
Hmm.
I think American fiction is like talks about it too much and then loses the
Okay.
point. So
Okay. Fine.
yeah,
Like
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Holdovers is
I
dealing
think
with
that's a good
Holdovers
segue.
is
Yeah.
dealing with whole guilt as the umbrella, right? Holdovers is dealing with guilt as the umbrella itself. It's not
Yeah.
dealing with just a white guilt and all of it.
Hmm.
You understand the
Yeah.
point. It's
Hmm.
I
yeah.
actually liken a holdover to more of like I'm gonna compare it with different directors.
Hmm.
If you look at this as Hal Ashby, American
hmm.
fiction is more of a. I mean, well,
Spike
okay,
Lee.
if it's yeah, American fiction is trying to be Spike Lee,
It's
but
trying
they
to be
did.
Spike Lee. It fails miserably at it, but yeah.
It's not, yeah.
Yikes. Okay.
If you
Yeah.
Yeah.
want,
Okay.
if you want other movies that were like a better movies, like Barry Jenkins, they are trying to be they're trying to be referencing to people who have made movies like that. We are not like,
Hmm.
oh no, not everyone's uncle is a drug dealer. Not
Yep.
Yes.
everyone's background is going to be in such impoverished way that you have to
Yeah.
like come out of it in some way,
Yeah.
right? You know.
Yeah.
And he has a whole speech in the end. That speechiness
Hmm.
is not there really in Holdovers. Holdovers is
Hmm.
more of like a in the end, I felt it was a very like a Gus Van
That's
Sant
one.
kind of movie.
Interesting.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
and it,
Yeah.
It's very
I
it's very
felt
goodwill
my own
hunting kind
private
of also.
Idaho. More
Hmm.
my own private Idaho, honestly. It was
Sure.
more a little bit meandering and trying to get to a point of, well, okay, I have to realize something is about to happen and I'm supposed to
Sure.
change. What
Sure.
changes that I don't know. And that was the
Yeah.
whole point of the whole movie, right?
Hmm.
And that whole background of like, oh, we have to have them in the war, the setting, everything like that is only something that's informing the characters. It's
Yeah.
not something that's going to change them in any way. There is nothing, there's
But
no
Yeah.
that's
interaction.
appreciable also, no, Hemant,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. That
if,
is.
if he did
That
not
is
put
that's
those
what I
in,
like
if he
about
did
it.
not,
Yeah.
yeah, if he did not put those in, na, those would have stood out more.
Yeah.
You are putting it in the 70s, but you're not bringing those up. How are the choices being
Huh,
informed?
it's
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
whole it's specific, but then it sort of highlights the universal
highlighting the
aspects of the
universality.
whole, which
Yes.
I think is a very
Yeah.
fast. Also, we have mentioned Alexander Payne again and again. It's not written by him. Also, it's written by David Hemmingson. I think he's due a sort of and he's nominated. I think for best original screenplay. Right. I'm
That's
pretty
original
sure he
screenplay.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because if he isn't, then
The Holdovers.
I know which film is, and I'm going to get more angry about it. So,
Yes.
Let's just keep the
I
Oscars open with us then.
Yeah, I know,
What's
right?
not? I think it
I
is
mean,
nominated.
it's what else is it nominated for? Best actor, Paul
Actor,
Giamatti,
Yes.
and supporting actress is almost guaranteed to win, right? With
yeah, it's
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much
yeah.
a
Of
I'm
lock.
course, of
sure.
course.
I'm so sure
Yeah.
Ravi's
yeah,
going to win. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
But also,
yeah.
here's the thing, right? Like I share some of the misgivings that Dhruv has with the fact that Davanja and Randolph, who's being publicized so much with such a great performance, her character effectively is being pushed to the side and basically becomes an emotional heft of it all. But in the third act, she's almost not there.
Hmm.
Which, to a certain extent, I can understand that within the screenplay you have to give space to some degree, but that also kind of doesn't sit right with me from a story standpoint
I
anyway.
mean, if you think about it as a screenplay, right? Think about it as a
Hmm.
screenplay. We have our inciting
Hmm.
incident. You have your second act. You have your
Yeah,
third
yeah, yeah.
act. Second act and third act. What will happen there? There was no fuel to that story left
Yeah,
for it to go
yeah.
further. Her going to
yeah.
the house. It's almost like like dropping off. That story of like in I don't know. I think it's a Greek story, right? Like where they're on a journey. I might be telling a really famous story and then and like just telling it, and then someone's going to tell you, oh, it's like some
You mean
famous
to say I have to
Greek
play
legend.
Damsharads again?
Yeah.
I
Well,
need a
yeah. Okay.
different context now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Oh
you
God.
go to River Styx. We go to the underworld, and then someone gets dropped off in River Styx, and
Are you
then they
talking
have to
about
live without
Odysseus?
Yeah, it's him.
Odysseus. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
okay, my
Jeez.
bad.
Oh,
See, I told you it's
thank
something
God.
famous, and I'm just explaining it to you.
Something famous
But
happened.
but yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah. So that's he has to live without Charon. Yeah, Charon. So he has to
Yes.
live without that whole the teacher anymore. Like you can't have that
Yes.
lessons anymore, and that's how
Yes.
you move on. Is without the
And
teacher, how do you actually learn?
I think at
And
that point in
that's
time,
I
it
guess also about
also
school.
it also develops Paul Giamatti's whole backstory a little bit more when they are left
Mhm.
alone. I think
Yeah.
so. I get like I
There is a
understand why
crescendo
it's
that comes
done.
and that has to go up.
I
That's
understand
only
why
I
it's done,
understand.
but I think the film works for me best when the three are together in any
When the
sense. So
three
like
are
I think I
together,
do
when
it
their
lose. Yeah.
interaction is
I mean,
developing,
yeah.
those
Yeah,
other parts
yeah,
are
because I think she is. I do. This is the second. Only in the second time, I think I noticed how much she is actually doing in the scenes where she's, on the one hand scolding Paul Giamatti for being an asshole, but then also being like, because she's treating Dominic Sessa's character as her son at one point, but also as another person who she despises in
yes.
one sense,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that is a
Yeah.
really great sort of tension, which I think she
And Randolph
communicates actually
and
very
Randolph
well
is so
in film.
good and Randolph is so good at delivering the sassy but motherly vibe.
Ha, it's
Even
not
the
leaning at
Basically,
all into
motherly vibe.
the.
All mothers are sassy, sir.
Yeah,
see,
I
my
just
mother
got
can't be
given.
called sassy.
By the
That
way,
would
I
be an
just got
insult to
given
sass.
food because I was not willing to have it by my mom. Okay, so yeah, it is true.
Yes.
Five, Dhruv, because you asked, five nominations.
Five nominations, okay.
Editing, original screenplay, actor, I
Yeah.
think,
Supporting actress
and
and
Supporting
film.
actress
supporting
and
actress and
Film.
film. Yeah, very
What if
surprising.
this wins
No
film?
nomination.
I mean, it won't because Oppenheimer is a big sort of
I mean, they'll
favorite.
break
So.
it, right?
Well,
It'll be
they should have
no,
given it
but
to Poor Things,
Oppenheimer
but they'll give it to
might
Oppenheimer.
split.
Yeah.
Oh, you've seen Poor Things, Hemant? You lucky man.
Dude,
I
I've
am
seen it twice. I've seen it
I am
twice.
halfway.
It's the best one. it's objectively the best one of all of them, and I'm pretty
Sure.
sure I don't think Shad's gonna win. I think Barbie is gonna win because of all the whole
I
backlash
don't think
because
Barbie's
of
gonna
best
win,
Barbie
but
director.
won't
okay.
win. The
Barbie's not
controversy, I
winning
think,
basically.
lessened its chances.
अच्छा okay, anyways, we will discuss
Yeah.
Oscars later. वो एक हफ्ता पहले
Yeah,
उसके
We'll just
Wait
watch
do
up.
the
them
shouting.
on the morning
We'll do
of.
the shouting business on the Oscars. Then we can do the shouting business on American Fiction first.
Oh, we are doing
Uh,
are you guys doing a live stream during the Oscars?
that I've not planned because I always
That we have
sleep
not
when they are
planned yet. We
airing.
might do a
You have
recording
to.
or a
You
live
No, but
have
I
stream.
to.
really, really
What's
want
the
to plug
point?
in my book recommendations because I did
Yes,
so
please
much
do.
research on
For
this.
yes,
Oh,
please
sorry,
do
And
for
sorry.
basically,
Before
Yeah.
Holdovers.
pointing the screenplay, I have
Yes,
to give space to that.
and
So
I will
please.
put this in the
Um,
comments, huh? For Sanjeet, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah,
For the
He books
one person
padega.
watching.
Great book reader, voracious book reader. We know.
yeah. Go ahead.
No,
Sanjay,
but
Say,
uh,
Hindal.
More voracious
I
than
will, I
Dhruv
will
for sure.
again, I will again send Dhruv a picture of the my handwriting, and I'll be like, now
Oh,
please decipher. Would know which
read it out. Read it out. I think it's better.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, the first recommendation will be Goodbye, Mr. Chips by James
Oh,
Hilton.
lovely.
that's a film
Yeah,
also.
Yeah, it
yeah,
is.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the book is just so it's such a
sure,
it also has a very nice context to it.
sure.
So which is why I think it's a very nice little read.
Mm-hmm.
Another would be Anxious People by Frederick Backman. It's
Batman.
Okay.
the once finished watching the film, I think that's the first book that I thought about because it is
Sure.
just so it has that same vibe where we are talking about a lot of things but not overtly, and
Yeah.
any of Backman's work, I feel, is just that
Sure.
light read where it's not a beach read, but also not an airport read. Like,
Got it.
I
Got it.
don't
Got
know
it.
how
Got it.
to communicate that. Yeah, it's just
No,
in
you have.
between.
You have no problem. Yeah. Go ahead.
So yeah, that. The other boys is Commonwealth by Anne Patchett, which is
I thought
Okay.
of
Anne
that
Patchett
too.
Yes.
is yeah. So
Yes.
Anne
It
Patchett
reminded
is
me of
a
her
is
work practically.
Yeah,
The
exactly. And Patchett is it's so beautiful a writer. So every
absolutely.
time you read something which is this like every time you I was looking at the holdovers, I could just think
Hmm.
about how she would go ahead and write it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought
So
it was a mixture of Commonwealth and a bit of the Dutch House because of the
oh right.
grandioseness of the school and a certain
But the
rigidity that
Dutch
comes
house,
in over there.
yeah, but the Dutch house has a lot of family dynamics playing into it,
True, but even here,
which
like the parents and stuff like that,
hmm,
it's dicey over there. And in
Uh,
fact, I just
uh,
true,
finished reading
true.
Varun, you can
essays.
write your own book recommendation yourself, please.
I'm
You
not
will know.
writing
I
now.
will not write it for you. In the
This
comments.
basically
Acha,
means that
nahin, main likh
Arindita
raha hu.
continue. Let's stay on track. Let's
No,
continue.
No, say
actually,
say
I
two more.
And
I'll write it. I'll write.
yes,
I've
yes.
written three of them. Yeah.
The other one is Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. This
Okay.
book particularly is one that I thought about because it's about appearances and how not everything that shows up is what it is, and it's
Hmm.
also a really light read. This is probably an airport read, but like a
Sure.
really nice airport read that you
Hmm.
can read over several hours.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this one's really nice and
Hmm.
heartwarming and good. The other one is a play, and this I thought was the most recommended plays. I think it's called The
Hmm.
History Boys,
Okay.
by Alan Bennett.
I've
So
not
that
written
this
the authors'
I
names,
do
but I've
not.
written all the titles. Huh? Just see if
Yeah, I'll
this
give
is
you the names.
correct.
I'll
Yeah.
give you the names. That's fine. Generally, so the genre that one should
I
particularly read.
apologize. This comment section has destroyed the neat listing I did of the titles. But yeah. Anyways.
Okay.
You needed to do more spacing. You needed more spacing.
Dude, there are 5 parts of completely fine, man.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes.
This is
Maybe I should have just put
But
it
yeah,
one by one.
yeah,
Anyways.
the
Yeah.
genre that I think one should ideally want to read is Dark Academia, but I think the vibe is Mohabbatein. So the
No,
book
Dark
recommendations have
Academia has
come
done
from that
like
after
place.
a
so after
fantasy
so
role.
many
Yeah. Also,
recommendations, we went back to Mohammed.
Yeah.
yeah.
I was about to
Also
say that.
another movie. Also
I was about
another
to say.
movie which I
Bolo, bolo,
think.
huh?
Also another movie which I think people might want to check out after by
I
watching the
can't hear you,
Holdovers.
Amut. Sorry.
Yeah. Just
Now,
yeah.
now it's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So one other movie besides, say, The Last Detail or Merlos, which,
Hmm.
yeah, other than that, another movie which I really like because it is set in Massachusetts, it is set in Christmas, and it is also about, the entire point of professors not getting over their graduation
Hmm.
mindset. Even if
Yep.
they are professors, they are still like behaving like college kids and all that.
Yep.
That is Wonder Boys by Curtis Hanson,
Okay.
2000 movie. Fantastic
Okay.
movie. I
Great
love that
movie.
movie.
I've
Michael
seen this
Douglas?
one.
I
Curtis
vouch for
Hanson,
Mohabbat hai.
LA
So I
Confidential
think
ka director,
yes,
sir.
that's it.
I saw
Really.
that film, no, that he wrote just now, last month, with
हाँ,
Yeah,
वो
yeah,
भी
yeah.
नहीं
Elliot
अच्छी लगी
Gould.
थी ना आपको?
No, I
Hmm.
loved that. The
अच्छा,
Silent
वो
Partner.
अच्छी लगी थी. Okay.
No,
Sorry,
actually,
we.
I have one book to recommend because randomly, out of the blue, I thought of
Wow.
it because
Hmm.
boarding schools are, I mean, if you grew up reading, you were reading Malaritas and St. Clair
Yes,
and
yes, exactly.
all that nonsense. So there's this
Wow.
educationist in India called Arjun Rao. He's a school principal somewhere in one of those IB type schools. He'd written this novel years ago. It was called Third Best. It was
Okay.
exactly like Saint Clair's and Malaritas, but in India, in a
Hmm.
co-ed school, and with like sex, drugs, rock and roll, profanity, and
Oh,
all. Yeah, it was just maxed out stuff, and it was quite a lot of
So it
fun
was
to read.
basically Riverdale
Sure.
before Riverdale was a thing.
yeah,
Okay,
that's
okay.
I was about to
actually
say
so
bully
interesting. That's
the
actually so
game.
interesting. So, I mean, just to like not,
Mm-hmm.
this is not subtle flex. This is what I studied. One of my specializations was children's literature, and I had to study a lot about these. So, Enid Blyton was one
Both.
of my
Sorry,
specialization
Ahindra.
topics.
Keep on speaking. Considering since you've started talking about books, people have come and started watching,
Yes.
which never happens. I think
And the
people run
fact that
away.
See,
and
bro,
the
if
fact
you
is she's
read,
saying,
this is what will happen.
yeah, hold on. And the fact is she's saying this is not subtle flex. I am sorry.
It is. It is not. It's just what I studied. So, one of my
Also,
master's
who
Yeah.
says subtle
specializations was
flex?
on children's literature,
Flex, just
and
flex. Don't use subtle.
I
Bolo,
had
bolo.
to
Sorry,
deal
I
with
complete. Yeah.
a lot of Enid Blyton, and we read a lot
Mm.
of these. You study in boarding school, so boarding school texts and everything. And
Mm.
I am so like I never could read this, the one that you just mentioned. So I'll
Mm.
try to pick it up. Third test, right? That's
Sure.
Third
what you said.
Third
best.
best.
Third
Best,
Third
best.
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 Oh, yes.
And it's got like
Oh,
Babri
right.
and interesting sort of stuff coming in,
Oh,
which is you don't
oh,
expect.
that's very interesting.
Yeah,
Because I had to read a
how do
lot
you
of this
imagine us?
England and war and
Yeah,
boarding school shiz because of my paper, but this one sounds very nice.
I mean, if you've heard stories of
Boarding school
Sanar and
shiz.
Lawrence
That should be
Loveday,
the name of the
then this
podcast.
is
Boarding
pretty
school
believable in
shiz.
that sense. Like people say, "Oh, this is fantastical." I'm like, no, I know friends in Sanar. They were pretty much like this.
Yes.
आप नहीं निकले ना ऐसे.
No, I didn't go to
हाँ,
boarding
ठीक है.
school.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
I failed the
Could have
entrance
been
test to
better.
go to boarding school.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
He so
You're the one
seriously
who.
tells that.
Yeah, you're the one who's gonna call them troglodytes when you
Yes.
grow up and
You
join that.
troglodytes. Yes.
I'm not good for those boarding schools
Yeah.
also.
Also, as fellow Billion watchers, did anybody notice that Paul Giamatti is basically playing Chuck Rhodes but in the 70s
I'm not
And
watched
without the
Billions.
money.
and
Never
without the
watched.
money? Yes.
But apparently, I've read some criticisms about his performance in the sense that it is very, very traditional Paul Giamatti. Like he's not breaking any new
Oh yeah,
ground here.
yeah.
All
I
those
don't
critics
get
must
this
have watched
criticism.
Billions. All those critics must have watched Billions for 8 years. That's why they're thinking this is traditional
I
Paul
don't know.
Giamatti. I
Listen,
cannot
I've
No, I
not
mean,
watched. Yeah.
that
So
would
sorry,
beg the
Well,
Varun.
question of Robert De Niro's norm. Right?
Oh
What
God,
did he
why
do
have you
with
started
it?
again?
oh man, we're back to
I'm
this.
pissed off about that
We are back to
nomination.
this now. Let's go.
No, no,
And we are
no.
going to talk
Later.
about the supporting actor nomination at some point. So.
I
We
mean, we
have to.
It's
did.
Sterling Brown.
Oh, yeah, we will. It's okay. We'll do it when We'll start with American Fiction. I think it's good
Yeah.
time
Let's
to
go
move
with
on.
it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think we've beaten this dead horse.
Yes, we've beaten this dead horse quite a bit. Now we can
It's a
beat
very
this.
Dead
lively
carcass,
horse.
as
Whatever
you like
this
to
is.
call them.
Now let's smell the carcass.
Yes.
Does no one like American Fiction
No, I
here?
like it. I like it enough. I
Okay.
don't like it so much.
Varun?
I like
I
it.
told
Okay, only
no, I've grown
one
colder
sentence.
day by day.
Great first half. Very
Okay.
promising first half. And
Okay.
when
This
they
is such
say
a Taran Adarsh
when,
review.
when someone sees potential, they were not happy
First
with
half,
something that they
first
saw,
half,
right?
5 out of 5.
That's the
Second
line.
half, 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I saw a lot of
Sorry, go
potential
ahead.
in the first half. Yeah, is
Okay.
what I wanted
Okay.
to say. Yeah.
Interesting. And you watched it in the cinema, I'm guessing, right, Hemant? Or did you watch it at home only?
No, I
Because
watched it later. there was a double feature of
I can
American
imagine
Fiction.
वो जैसे वहाँ पे करते हैं हाँ yeah.
They have
So
like a you pay $10, you get to see 3 movies, basically that.
yep.
I got off for work, went there straight there, okay, and that was it. And the only
What
good
did
movie
you
I saw
watch?
in all of them
What
was
are the features?
I saw Poor Things, I saw Barbie again, and then I saw American Fiction. Yeah,
Oof.
Wow.
I saw
Can't
Barbie.
imagine
This is
Barbie.
What do you mean
Barbie
oof?
second.
I've watched
Barbie is good.
both.
Okay. I mean I
No,
like
no,
it.
I
I'm
watched
Sorry.
both
talking
Poor
about
Things and
American
Barbie
fiction
twice.
after
Yeah,
that. I'm talking about
Okay.
American fiction
yeah,
after
it
those
was a
two
very
movies.
weird.
Like,
Yeah, it was a very weird combo.
Huh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
yeah.
But it is
Anyways,
like, at least
American
we're talking about
Fiction.
communities.
No, I will say
Yeah.
American Fiction director Cord Jefferson, who's I think a TV director before, right? This is his feature film debut,
Yes.
if I'm not.
According to most publications nowadays, because they're utilizing AI, wire Jefferson. Because artificial intelligence actually converted
Oh,
core to wire. This is a good real thing. Look it up.
Oh,
at least they didn't call him
Wire.
Wire Thomas instead of Cord Jefferson.
Yes.
Anyways, writer Cord Jefferson also. It's based on the novel Erasure by Percival Everett. Any of you two readers have read it? Three readers, four. Actually, all four of you are readers. What am I saying? I'm just okay. None of you have read
don't
it.
insult readers by calling me a reader.
Okay, fine. Three then.
Yeah, basically same only. Yeah.
Acha, theek hai, then
Two
two. None of you have read it. Okay, fine.
And the English
Uh,
masters people have not read the book either.
Yeah.
No, but I've heard, but I sent Hindrila a link. I don't know if she got the chance to read it, but someone
Yeah,
had
yeah,
written
yeah,
a
The
yeah.
very extensive thing on what the differences between the two are, like crucial
Also,
differences
so who pointed it out that that the book setting is what 22 years prior? So
prior. So,
world of
like a totally
difference.
different context and total different
Yeah,
world in which we are
there's
sort
that
of
whole
living now. So,
pre
But
9/11, post 9/11 kind of dynamic also comes.
yeah.
no,
So,
but
Hindrila, you were
that's
saying?
also not exactly it to be. I mean, because we are
Sure.
dealing with the publishing industry and we are
Hmm.
not really dealing with. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we are dealing with, of course, but it's
Hmm.
still the post-racial society. It's still
Hmm.
uh, the only difference that I think is very, very prominent is the fact that we have moved 20 years ahead, where uh, now capitalism will put Confessions of a Shopaholic to shame. Like, that is the
Yeah.
kind of capitalism that we have arrived at. I really like that line. I'll write it
Yeah.
down, that
So
down
there's
somewhere.
no,
That
just to
is
say
good.
that there is
That is good.
there are good things in the film. There are some really. I mean, I think Jeffrey Wright is great. I think
Jeffrey
he,
Wright is
if
great.
anything, like it's hard
Who's
for him
Jeffrey
to be
Wright?
bad. Also, yeah, exactly. That's the
Jeffrey Wright is playing the ultimate street man. I loved it.
yeah.
He's
He's
like
also
I
the
mean,
playing all
so
the Jeffrey Wrightisms, all like
yes,
yeah,
exactly.
how he
Yeah,
plays it,
I
and
think.
that game
Yeah.
night where he's like
Oh
the
yeah, he's
actor.
great fun in that movie.
He's
yeah.
he's
Yeah.
basically
He's
The
also
that,
com.
and
Commissioner Gordon. He's also
Yeah.
Commissioner
imagine the
Gordon.
life of that guy. That's what this movie is.
Yes.
I
Anyways,
actually
for
texted these guys
bolo.
after the film, and I was like, oh yeah, I think yesterday that I don't know when that it's basically what if Felix Leiter had decided not to join the
Yes.
CIA and become a professor instead.
Yes.
This is
Okay,
that.
I have no idea what the
Wisecracks and
difference means, so I'm just going to move on.
Felix Leiter. You don't know who
कौन है
Felix
Felix
Leiter is?
Leiter?
No, he
The
won't
American in Casino Royale.
know. Still won't know.
भूल गया.
Bro, in
Yeah.
No
Sorry.
Time to Die, the guy who gets sacrificed.
No Time to Die, the
Cultureless
guy who gets
man.
killed.
Uncultured
हाँ, No Time to Die याद
behavior.
नहीं है ना, अच्छी नहीं थी
Culture of
उतनी.
dying.
Oh, come on.
Uncultured behavior of
Sorry.
Queen is dead.
Anyways, plot of American Fiction. Whoever's not familiar with it, is a novelist who's fed up with the establishment profiting from black entertainment uses a pen name to write a book that propels him into the heart of hypocrisy and the madness he claims to disdain. This is not me. This is IMDb.
Basically,
And
AI.
yeah, and
That's
the
what
That's the
next.
I
line every
thought
actor
AI.
says.
Because
Yeah,
ChatGPT
exactly.
would certainly use those words.
I was like,
But then no, but then I added that simultaneously the film provides an alternative narrative of exploring the black or like the black character's family life, because I think the film, if you just say that whatever's written on IMDb, it sort of just sells you half the film, or maybe even I would say
Yeah,
40% of the
IMDb
film,
is
because
owned by
60% of
Amazon.
it is
American Fiction is made by Amazon. Picture बेचना भी है.
अच्छा ठीक है. No, but see, picture okay. Anyways, I'm curious. I was curious about the film in general because it sort of gained traction gradually and sort of did it make Golden Globes nominations and all that, or did it
I
just
think
straight up make only Oscars?
It
No,
did
I
make
think it
Golden
did.
Globe
Golden
It
Globes
did?
like black
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Do Golden
Okay.
Globes like black people? पर देखना पड़ेगा।
ये भगवान.
Of course they do, Amartya. What are you saying?
No,
I mean, the Golden
no.
Globes have been
But
revamped. I don't think it's fair to say
well,
that.
well, they didn't give Moonlight Best Musical. Huh?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the HFPA. The
Oh
HFPA
my
is now
God.
finished.
Okay, anyways, I'm before we dovetail somewhere else with this, I just want to.
I mean, we are dovetailing in this area only, the racial
हाँ,
politics
but
of
फिर
it.
भी
Oh,
no, I mean,
it got
see,
like two Golden Globes nominations: Best Picture
it
and
got
Best
two.
Actor.
So in this, it's fairly much like
Yeah,
much
yeah,
more
yeah.
expansive, right?
Much more.
In terms of what all it's sort of going for. It got a
It was
best
proving the
adapted
movie's point.
screenplay nomination, best supporting actor nomination, which we will discuss, best picture nomination. That's it,
Picture,
Mm.
best
and best
Yeah.
actor,
supporting
no,
actress or no?
No, no
no,
Best Supporting
supporting
Actress.
actress
कोई है ही
आता
नहीं
It's
picture
a
में.
very, based on the basis of the link that you had sent me only, and then I
Hmm.
read up a lot about the real,
Hmm.
like the book and how
The
it follows, and I
erasure.
figured
Yeah.
out yeah, it does feel like it's a very, like a lot has been lost in translation.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been, I don't know if it's a great adaptation in the first place. Of course, I haven't read
Hmm.
the novel, but
Yeah.
according to what most people have then gone ahead and written about the book and how the
Hmm.
book deals with most of these issues, it does feel like the film falters with it.
Yeah.
So,
No, I
Okay, I
think
have a
it's
It,
question for
almost.
quick,
I have a question
So.
for sorry, I have a question
Hmm.
for all the lit majors. How do you assess a movie's adaptation? I was reading. I'm right now reading Poor Things, and I want to
mm,
understand how do I judge it? Like because I have no clue. I watched the movie twice, loved it, but when I'm reading the book, I'm so lost. Okay, and I mean I want to understand how do you judge the adaptation? How good an adaptation is from the novel versus the movie?
Anila, you want to go first? I'll go first.
first, it's fine.
So, in my head, at least, like this year,
Oh,
there's
no,
the
wait,
most.
1 minute. Why is Amartya laughing?
I have no idea.
I know
He's
Uh,
that's
already
low.
judging
You
us.
go first. It's fine. You go first.
no, no, Varun, go, speak
Yes.
out your
So
No.
I'll just
heart.
say, right, Eric Roth and Martin Scorsese's screenplay of Killers
Oh
is
God,
a
you're
better
doing
screenplay than it is an adaptation.
Okay.
yes.
Right. Similarly, it's quite likely that Jonathan Glazer's screenplay of The Zone of Interest is a better screenplay than it is an adaptation because it takes away everything. Martin Amis's novel does not name the Auschwitz camp commandant directly. It doesn't name anybody directly. It uses
Can I
pseudonyms.
ask you one question there?
Hmm. Hmm.
How much does it matter that the filmmaker changes stuff from the
I
adaptation?
think because then it's
Another
not
question.
the
Yeah,
same
same.
story, right? I mean, Glazer could have practically made the same film by
Yeah.
calling it a true story, which it
I
is.
mean, but he took
Because
inspiration
he's not,
from it, right?
I mean, it's based on real events. He's not really the crux of Amos's novel, from what I
Hmm.
understand, is a fictitious affair between Rudolf Hess's wife and one
Yeah.
of his officers,
Yeah.
which is, to my knowledge at least, not the central plot of the film.
Not at all.
No,
Right.
Yeah.
So
not
when
at all.
that is
Hmm.
changed in the film, I believe
Hmm.
it's easier to say, okay, based on many books. But like
Hmm.
we've seen this happen last month, where Sam Bahadur is practically adapted from two books,
Where
but
did
it
this
doesn't
come into
credit them.
this?
No.
Okay,
It's
fine.
that's
No,
what I'm saying. It's practically taking everything
Okay.
from two books,
Sure.
but because it doesn't want to buy rights and do that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
it's saying written by so and so. So
no,
it's
but
a
Sure.
fine line. I don't think Killers
No,
is a
but
great
you. No,
screenplay
but see.
from an
Sorry.
adaptation perspective because it
So,
doesn't have balance.
for you, the journalistic integrity of the adapter
Hmm.
is something that has to be factored in when you look at the adapted
Not just that,
screenplay.
I think do capture the spirit of the original text, and I don't think Killers did that. I think Killers
Okay,
captured the original events very well. I
Hmm.
don't
okay,
think it captures Grant's book very well. So which
Sure.
makes it two very different
okay,
things,
okay.
right?
I'm
Grant
But
So
do
faithful
you
then.
was
like the
an
film?
I haven't
Do you
really
See,
like
read
the?
Volume 1.
ultimately, no, the problem of, so what we always, sorry, I may just go into my extremely school teacher mode, please
Please
pardon.
do,
So,
please do. No,
You
the
want?
question of
That's why I
adaptation.
asked, dude.
No, the
we are
question of
listening.
adaptation is very central because it's so many of the
so
films are adapted
yeah,
nowadays. There's barely any,
So,
you don't get.
something that we always tend to, the most basic point of adaptation is actually translation oblique transliteration. That is the most basic point of adaptation that we miss, because a translation can only happen in spirit, and a transliteration is whatever's written, you're just putting that on the
Yep.
paper, maybe in a slightly like tweaking it around a little bit to suit the medium, because
Sure.
the two mediums are so completely different, and the
Yeah.
demands of both the mediums are so completely different in what they expect from their readers and the viewers.
Yeah.
The A lot of things have to change from a book
Yeah.
to a film. For
Yeah.
example, if you would take the third book of the Harry Potter series and make a scene by scene movie, one, the movie will be incredibly long. Two, a lot of things will have to be introduced, which then makes the seventh movie an 8 hour film. So
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
things
That's what they're
are
doing now.
necessary.
So
Yeah, Emma Watson,
No, but
what Hermione doing the whole goblins ka, rights
That's
no, that's
few
in book
book
activism.
three.
four, and those
That's
are
in
And
book
elves. These are
four.
not
That's few
goblins.
thing is book four.
okay,
yeah, so but
Yeah,
that's also the thing. If you ever came to know during the in the movie, and how the movie, especially the first film, has been parceled, ki philosopher's stone mein you come to know ki, oh, like there's a kitchen that's then run by these particular people, and how
yeah,
that brings in the whole class consciousness and etc. in Hogwarts. It doesn't remain a children's film anymore, which is how they had initially parceled it, which
Yep.
is why then people who grew up watching Harry Potter became for them like a coming of age experience. That doesn't remain that anymore,
Yep.
because the Harry Potter that's written is for all kinds of people. Of course, once you grow up with it, you realize more and more about.
Yep.
So that's what it's a lot of things that change due to the change in the mediums, which is
Yep.
when translation comes into the scene as opposed to transliteration, because which is what Varun said, we have to
Yep.
be able to capture the spirit. The
right.
problem of an American fiction is also that sometimes just capturing the spirit is not enough, because this book was written 20 years ago and a lot has changed in the American society itself in the last
Yep.
20 years. So to bring it up to date, you
Hmm.
have to tweak around a few elements, which is why the Hollywoodization and the meta
correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
fictional
for sure.
ending
Yeah.
was important, I understand. But it also, according to me, just personally drags the film down. I wanted it to make a bold statement, which it did not
Yep.
make.
Yep.
So that, but that's a personal choice. But apart from that, it's important to tweak around a few things when there's a year gap, and the
Of
audience
course.
and your target audience and everything, for you to be able to sell it, because ultimately it all comes down to capitalism 101.
Of course. Yeah.
So that is why no matter what you are adapting and how you are adapting, the trick feels of a good translation, of a good adaptation, it feels like the movie should not miss out on what the book truly
Is
upholds, but it
okay.
also
Upwards.
does bring in a new element to it for you to ponder upon, instead of just thinking that you have to go back to the book right away to read some of its lines and then feel like, oh, was it replicated in the best manner?
I was
Yeah, a
about to
great
ask you
That's
this
example
not
of
how
this
it
is
actually.
should be.
actually Oppenheimer, right? Where the whole Lewis Strauss angle is entirely based on Nolan's own research and writing. That angle
Yeah.
Okay.
is one paragraph in the book.
I mean,
One paragraph.
I wanted to
And it's
ask.
a 1,000 page book.
I'm glad Hindrila pointed out about the sort of, I mean, translation. I totally understand, and I've only I see. I'm not a reader, so I barely know about the reading part of it. But we did an assignment in class essentially where we were learning about adaptation, and we had to read Power of the Dog by Jane Campion and how she had adapted it. So I think one of the best things which I sort of came across in that was condensation, or like just constriction, and just, because film is so, it speaks so many things
Yeah,
in one frame. Like you can condense millions, and not millions, but hundred of things in a single shot, and that film essentially chucks out 2 chapters of backstory
right.
uh, that is there. Like about 50 to 60 pages of the book are just captured simply based on Benedict Cumberbatch's acting, and and the fact that you have to sort of gain more from their performances, from insinuations, from small visual
No,
hints in many
yeah,
ways,
and
right?
that's
So
a great bit of condensation actually happens in Thomas Alfredson's adaptation of Tinker Tailor Soldier
Tinker
Spy,
Tailor. Mm-hmm.
written
Yes.
by Bridget O'Connor and Peter Storm.
Exactly. Yep.
So there's a scene in that in which Gary Oldman is confronting Mark Strong's character. They're in that classroom at first, and then they're in the caravan. In the book, I believe it's 6 scenes. It That scene plays out across 6 locations. By condensing it to 2 locations and giving them as much dialogue as the film's characterization of these people requires, the film does exactly what the book needed to do, but in
Sure.
its according to
Own.
its own medium.
Sure. Got it.
Opposite end of the spectrum, which is something Varun Grover, Vasant Nath, and Smita Singh did, was they didn't try to take Sacred Games back to 2004-5, which is the actual setting of the novel. They updated it to 2017, and then they went absolutely batshit crazy at one point with it.
Okay.
So the second season takes the best elements of the book and squanders them, adds in elements which are of no value essentially, and just
You're
Are you
here
talking
with
about the flashback section?
Amartya.
Are you talking
Amartya is the
flashback section?
season 2 fan, huh? Here, so just
Yeah. Are you
to
talking about the flashback section of Sacred Games?
not just no. So the thing is that
we will
one of the
return to
key-
American fiction
yeah,
very
yeah,
soon.
in 2
Yes,
minutes.
last
Yes.
So
deviation.
one of the
Yeah.
key elements in Sacred Games is that Sartaj Singh and Major Colonel Shahid Khan are cousins.
Yes, they
Sartaj
are
is
cousins.
much
Yeah.
younger than him. But
Yeah.
the show never gets to it because
Yeah,
first of
in
all,
the last
Ranveer
episode,
Shori looks
in
so
the last
young.
episode,
Yeah.
it is just
It
hinted
just
at. Yeah, it's just
it's a
hinted.
hint. But it is such a clinical part of that story to create this, to make you realize the fissures of the subcontinent and the problems of of modern day terrorism and things like that.
Yeah.
That the show, in going down that whole Dongi Baba and nuclear fallout shelter angle, it just
Baba.
leaves everything
But
on the
Dongi Baba, but quote unquote Dongi Baba was a big thing back then. Remember that was
Okay,
sure.
Sacred Game
Even
season 2
now.
Yeah.
discussion later. But
yeah.
no, thank you for clarifying a lot of things actually in this sense. And another question I will be asking Varun later is about something like The Shining, where the source material is totally switched out, like
Yeah,
and you completely change it, and what happens then? Anyways, that is not the case with American fiction. It's updating some elements, but I think one of the things that was written in the article, which I shall link actually in the description here, is about how the film is in conversation with the book, in the sense that the book is fairly radical in its disapproval about the commercialization and commodification of black narratives, almost like it's sort of really calling it out in the most harsh way possible, whereas I think American fiction is much more lenient actually, in the way it sort of almost questions the person questioning the people who are sort of inside the business of it, and sort of
But it
gaining
never
from
really
it.
the problem of American fiction ultimately really boils down to the factor that no matter how many times they just beat around the bush, they never
Hmm.
really come clean and tell you that
Yep.
it is the money that matters.
Yep.
At the
Yep.
end of the day, it really is the money that matters, and
Yep.
it is money that then makes you switch your morals or want
Hmm.
to do things that you
But
probably have never tried.
what I think is, for the filmmakers and for the people who are loving the movie, that beating around the bush we're not telling is kind of for them feels like, oh my god, look how subtle it is. It's really not.
It's
When
not
you are making a
subtle.
movie, no, when you are making a movie like this, there are times when you
So
can't afford to be subtle. That's
When
the
is
whole
it
so
point.
subtle
there's this
though?
Hmm.
So there's this article, I think Time Magazine published this article. It's by R.F. Kuang.
Yeah,
It is by the same writer who wrote Yellow Face,
yellow
which is
face.
Yes,
also
yes, yellow pencil.
yeah, which is a book that is exactly directly criticizing the publishing industry and its absolutely snake-like standards in the current day and time. So so it's the same writer who writes, and I think very correctly she asks question where she's like, okay, now you have pointed out um something that is, and which is why I was also talking about the class consciousness there. She talks about how I just randomly said she, I don't know gender identity. So they like
We
randomly
will stick
talk
with the.
about
We'll stick with they. Let's be
yeah,
safe for
yeah. We shall stick with this. So sorry, apologies on my part. But they like they talk about how we get stuck in talking about and like basically constantly satirizing the white people, and in the process we draw the limelight again onto what, like we are pandering
Sure.
to the white people anyway because of how we are beating around the bush. But
Yes.
at the heart of it all, there is also a class consciousness that we are not talking about, because
Mm.
uh, Monk is able to do whatever he is doing
Yep.
because he comes from a certain place of privilege,
Yes, exactly.
which
Yep.
other black writers may not come from.
Yep.
That is
Hmm.
never discussed, or that is never brought up even in that conversation where he is sitting down in that boardroom and talking with
With Issa Rae's
Sinatra.
Sintara.
character,
Yeah,
who's
Golden. Yeah,
Sintara Golden. Yeah. Who's
Sintara
Yeah.
yeah.
Golden, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is not coming up. So it is not exactly intersectional in how
Yeah.
it addresses also the topic, no matter how much it may have desired to do it. So
Can
it does
I?
get stuck
So
in that
I'll just
in between.
ask a question about the sort of intersectional element of it. Do you think it's also not there because he never actually goes outside of his circle, where he can talk like that with anyone? Because Sintara Golden is not also belonging to another class background. She is basically his. She's belonging
Counterpart,
to the
right?
Female equivalent.
a similar sort
Yeah.
of
Hmm.
class background, but she's writing about subjects which are not her own essentially. And I guess the question
I
again
think the
the
self.
problem
I think it's also Monk's own self-centeredness, right? Because he's so far up his own quote unquote the proverbial ass that he can't figure out that his own upward privilege of it all is giving him the freedom to actually write about stuff beyond what other people of his own racial similarity, they
yeah.
don't have the
Yeah.
option.
So
Yeah.
he's ending up being. What I always read from that boardroom
Yeah.
study, like that whole thing was inevitable. I felt like the whole movie
Yeah.
was barreling
Leading
towards
to
Building to
that.
that
that. Yeah,
conversation,
yeah, it
right?
was building to that.
And 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 once it happened, it was so tired, like the whole conversation was so tired that he
Hmm.
was done with it. He was like, okay, there is nothing to be gained in this. I knew the truth all
Yeah,
along,
exactly.
and I can't
Yeah.
change it.
Hmm.
And for him, the truth was the matter, was that, oh, this is the true, our lives can be more than that, but he has
Wow.
nothing to offer. And I thought that the movie was metatextual, in that it was trying to give you that answer with his life.
Hmm.
By and I guess the story in the book might be that, but the movie itself is a whole problem. We're just talking about the story, right? The movie, I have
Yep.
many problems with it, how it was made, the tone of the movie, the editing is
Mm.
just fucking
The
The
horrible, and
tones.
editing is
The
there, and the
tones.
movie itself, the story movie itself,
many
like
tones, yeah.
there is
Yeah.
like a irreverent tone with regards to the publishing side of the things, and then
Yep.
there
Yeah,
is a suddenly
It's
some
not like it's
extremely
properly broad
sincere and
satire, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it's
With
it
the
proper
is very
white.
satire.
broad, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
And
and
broad,
then
he
there
that's
is an
suddenly goes like, my
extremely
book's called
sincere.
Fuck. You're
Yeah,
like,
and
Yeah.
yeah.
then there's an extremely
but that was
sincere and
part of the
hokey family
story, right?
story
That was
there.
part of the
Yeah,
book and everything like that. The whole
yeah.
book's
No, no.
point
So
was
my
that
point is
he
like,
can
So
get
which
away with
is
anything.
which is why I told you, right, that it feels like an insincere adaptation, because from what I read, I figured that this absolutely cutting edge, jarring satire is what it draws from directly when it comes to the book. And then the
Yeah.
Hmm.
director has confessed to the fact that they wanted to build a film where the audience kind of sits and then gets to ponder upon what the characters, like what the resolution should be, which is
Hmm.
why there are no absolutes that are being mentioned.
Hmm.
Right.
Everything is being left open for other
I
people
mean,
to then decipher.
there
They did not
he and
intentionally
it
want to
is,
do that.
yeah, and it is not subtle in the ending either, right? Like, because he's
no.
talking
Yeah,
about all
exactly.
the endings that can be, and oh, you
Yeah.
Hmm.
can resolve this way, you can resolve this way, you can resolve this way,
Hmm.
it can
I
be
mean,
whatever, and then they
yeah.
leave it out to the fourth wall. It's like, oh, you now resolve it for us because
Yeah.
we are tired. We
I
have
mean,
no
no.
more,
I
no
think
more
I think the
ideas.
film ends on a fairly
No, but
pessimistic note
also
that he
it is.
sees what's life gonna be for him essentially.
Hmm.
Monk,
Yeah.
like because actually the one moment that I do think is striking, and I wanted so much more of it, was when he gives an almost disgusted but like appreciative look to the other black artist sitting
Yeah,
outside the
who's playing
car.
the
I was
slave?
like,
Yeah.
that is exactly what this needs in terms of the satire but
Yeah.
being really uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and none of it really strikes apart from that one single moment where it's
You
almost
know,
Hmm.
like he knows what he's stepped into, and he knows the other guy's also stepping into this, and he probably
Yeah,
has to
exactly.
remain in the system to sort of
Hmm.
exist in
But he
that
has
way, and that
acknowledged.
sort
But
of
he has acknowledged it. The artist, that
He is
artist has
him.
already acknowledged it, and is
he
already
is
part of the system. Yeah.
Monk. as in,
Yeah, he is monk, exactly, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
That
I
was
feel
the
like the material that makes up American fiction. I'm sorry, Hemant,
Hmm.
I cut you off.
Hmm.
Um, the material needs a Jordan Peele like directness on some level.
Hmm.
Like because the way he marries some of that. Hold on,
Hold
hold
on.
D-
on.
Hemant,
One
you
second.
aren't a fan, right? Am I right? Or
I'm not a
am I
Jordan
wrong?
Peele fan
Yeah.
at all.
Okay. Right.
I feel
Got it.
he's so
No, see,
tried. Yeah.
I've not watched Us. I've not watched Nope. I'm going entirely off of
Oh,
Get
you've
Out.
just watched Get Out.
Get Out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's it's
I
yeah.
I I like the directness of that film.
Wow, wow.
I
I just
would much rather it went down because here it's like you're both coy about wanting to confront a reality. You are also pandering to existing
Hmm.
stereotypes with the thing that oh it could be fictitious. I'm like balls. That doesn't allow you to write it into your film. That's such a
No,
I
no.
convenient
didn't
way
see
I,
to
it
tell
this
I
a
think
time.
story.
the exploration of his life is supposed to be the counterpoint, in the sense that it's supposed to be the
But it doesn't
complicated
work.
counterpoint to what the stereotypes are, and I
But
don't
it's
think he
Yeah,
too
gives
it's
enough
but
too
time to
yeah,
any of
it doesn't
the
it's not
work. You know,
subplots. To
I
you
think
know,
he really mellows it down for no good reason. Like now
hmm.
that I
Yeah, I
know
think
what the
Yeah.
possibilities were, now I
hmm.
feel I'm just disappointed because I think
No, but
there could have
also,
been so
also
much
I'll tell you
more to
this.
displaying his life,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
which would have been the counter then.
Yep.
But also, if you
But
read the blurb of this movie, which
Hmm.
they are selling the movie as, there is a blurb that says it is kind of trying to be a satire, but also kind of look at it from an intimate lens. If I'm going to break that sentence down
Hmm.
and say satire, but also look at an intimate lens, objectively speaking, the intimate lens should be the familial aspect of it all, right? Because
Hmm.
that's the intimate lens that they are thinking about in
Yep.
terms of screenplay.
Hmm.
My point is the intimate lens of it is completely destroying the irreverent and satirical tone which the movie is trying to bring about in the first place.
Yeah,
The
not in
family
any
aspect of
productive way. Also, like it's not like a counterpoint, which is like, oh, jarring in a sort of
like
no,
amazing
no,
it's
way.
not
you
It's
like
know
like
what?
okay,
just
First of
like
all,
bad.
so it's
you,
trying to
you
be
know,
what it's trying to be being there by Hal Ashby, but it's ending up
yes,
being what just happened by
yeah.
Sam Levinson,
you
Barry
can't
Levinson.
be
You know what?
you
Wait,
can't
what?
be both Anna Karenina and the death of
Oh
Stalin.
God.
That's not
Yeah,
happening.
wow, even
Yes,
better.
exactly.
It's not
Exactly,
happening.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
What is your Anna Karenina and
Which
Joe
one?
Wright
No,
hatred?
it's no.
Varun?
It's not got anything
No,
to do
no,
with Joret. Anna
he's
Karenina
perfectly
is
right.
the novel.
He's perfectly
Is
The
a very
novel
Acha,
beautiful
okay.
itself.
portrait of a very
right.
difficultly placed woman. And the
Yeah.
death
No,
of
but
Stalin is just
hmm.
absolutely
It was kind of
nutty, completely
satirical,
broad.
full on.
I
Yeah,
no, I
yeah.
understand what you mean, but I feel you need. I think you can do that, but you need a very skilled director to pull it off. Like in the sense
One of
Yeah.
that
the
those two
Also,
first
you know what the
Has
other
very
problem
has
is?
disparate
any
tones sort of come.
has
You
any
know
one
the
of
other
you
problem.
seen Earth Mama?
I
It's
have,
got
No, I need to see
you
that.
have read
I
that
have.
director
Savannah
could
Lee.
have done it,
Yep, yep,
right?
yep, yep.
She
I
could have
mean,
done it.
I think even like I've seen
Ava DuVernay
Bamboozled by
also could have
Spike
done it.
Lee.
Yeah,
Bamboozled by Spike Lee
it's
is
also very
closer in
close,
spirit
very
It's
close.
to
Yeah,
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 closest
yeah.
in
yeah.
spirit, but Bamboozled is also extremely in your face, which I think it
It
needed.
is.
This needed.
Yeah.
But it also has an
No,
aesthetic that really goes for it. Like this is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like
It's very ugly.
TV series. I was like,
A
what is
TV
this
movie, yeah.
aesthetic? What is this? Yeah, yeah.
No, no,
It's
but
like
Dude, that
you
shot
know
of
what
the
the other
zoom out
problem?
of them in the room
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
house, like when they're dancing, everyone's
yeah,
dancing
yeah,
in the
exactly,
house, and
exactly.
then it goes all the way out.
you
It felt
got
like,
it
oh
on
my
the
god,
epic.
I'm gonna get a Hallmark movie music from this.
That's
You
exactly
said
what I was
yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah.
say. And also, you know what the bigger problem is because the familial aspect of it is taking place through the perspective of a African American man, but from an upper privileged
Privilege,
Mm-hmm.
class.
African American man.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So the family life basically resembles to me a white family ka hallmark basically, and I'm like, what's the
Yeah,
point? Why are you giving this to me? Don't give this to me, nah.
No, I
I
think you
think it was
can give it, but
perception,
you
right?
just need much
Yeah,
more
No,
that's
no,
time
you
being
need to
devoted to the
comment
No,
on
but
it.
relationships,
that's the
na?
thing. You give it
Huh.
because it's possible that it's
yeah,
people
the
in the same
dynamics.
country anyway. They
Yeah,
can resemble a white family
Huh.
dynamics. The only thing
Yeah,
is that it had to be played out in a certain way where you
Yeah,
focus on how, like, again, now because I've read this link that we are constantly mentioning, so there it does say that apparently in the novel there is a
Hmm.
certain element of tension that exists between, like, there are some intrafamilial tensions that
Tensions. Hmm.
sizzle and they and come to the surface at the wedding. of
Yep.
the governess.
The house helps,
So
I think, right? I think.
yeah,
Eileen,
so
Yeah.
so
Eileen is what he says. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
He says
Yeah.
the way he says Eileen is amazing.
I couldn't,
so
the thing is that it had no teeth.
yeah,
The interactions
exactly.
between
There is no
Wright and
bite.
Sterling
There's no
Brown,
bite in the
I'm like, what
sarcasm.
the hell is
There's no
this?
bite. Yeah.
You are
So
literally
okay, so
walking
in
in and interacting like jobbing actors and then leaving the set. It's
so in the book or in like the actual story, was it somewhere where some of the stereotypes which are being made fun of somewhat little bit real, where like they'll have someone who actually is a drug dealer in their family, they come up and they'll be like, oh man, I can't deal with this right now.
No, but I
Like,
think
is
the
it,
Sterling K. Brown character is supposed to be much darker. Not
he looked
literally, of
darker,
course, like
yeah, he
figuratively.
felt a little bit darker than how it's supposed to
Oh
be, yeah.
God.
Man,
No, in
Man,
you're
terms
gonna
of
get paid for this.
the
You're gonna get paid so hard for this.
paid. You needed to get paid for this. Paid. Yes.
Yes, so hard.
Yes.
But
no, but
okay, so like,
genuinely, like even that, yeah, that's that segment. Like again, I don't want to consistently keep on comparing it to the book because if it's, but the problem is if it's its
also
own
because we've not
thing,
read the
it's.
book.
Yeah.
If it's its own thing, also the
well,
problem is that the backstory of homophobia that his father had, I think father and mother had with Sterling Grey
was,
Brown's
yeah.
character. Then
Yeah.
there's the Alzheimer story. I was like, what is this? Like, why is this not given like the time to really?
Hallmark Christmas movie.
Well, this
Hallmark
was
Christmas
supposed to.
movie.
Well, this was
or the
supposed to
whole
be a.
resolution bit, or the whole resolution bit that finally happens with the queer elder brother, because that feels very rushed. That feels like
Yep,
something that just
Yeah,
has to be
Elder? I
done,
thought he's
because
younger.
it's
He's the
not
younger
that
brother.
easy to.
younger
He's the
brother, I
he's the
think
younger
younger.
brother.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry. So that, like, what was the name? Bill? I mean, seems like a stereotypical
Cliff,
American name.
Cliff,
Cliff.
the brother's
Cliff.
name.
Yes. Oof.
Yes,
Cliff.
I
Should have
yeah.
called him Mountain. The
But
amount of
was
mentions.
about.
Shut
but
up.
but I deal with enough Americans every day. Calm down.
Yes.
But the point is, but the point is that it does. I mean, that feels like a resolution that comes too quickly for a
Yes.
trauma
Yep.
and for an issue that is that deep seated and
Yeah.
that is affecting both the parties so prominently. It
Yeah.
seems like that's a very easy
Yeah,
solution to
yeah.
No,
There's
come
also
to,
yeah,
and
that.
that is a
There's
very
also that
Hallmark
moment.
movie thing.
There's also the moment where he's basically says that tells Coraline, his love interest, this family is going to destroy you. All of a sudden, I was
they
like,
break
what?
your heart. Is
Where?
what he says.
Where?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. I was
I'm
like,
like,
ये कहाँ
I'm
से आ
like,
गया?
No, no, no.
No,
I actually,
and
I like that moment. No, that
Okay.
moment made sense
Ideally,
in the event. In the sequence of events, actually makes sense because he was so happy. He was finally back in the family. He was finally okay. He was dancing with his mom.
Okay.
Sadly, his mom says,
Yeah.
"Oh, I knew you weren't
Oh,
cool."
okay. Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay,
That
okay.
comment like really set him off, and
Okay,
the
okay.
resolution was that oh, your family, and then they hugged him, music played, and that was the resolution. That's what
my
frustrated me.
for a film that's talking about
if it were
stereotypes,
an
how
if it were
much?
an audio series, sorry,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No.
Go ahead,
No,
Varun. Go. Indra will go. Don't
for a
worry.
film that
I
is
just wanted
talking
to
so
crack a
much,
joke. It's fine.
Okay. हाँ तो
for a
वरुण
film
पे
that's
कर
talking
देंगे
so much
crack.
about,
Varun पे कर देंगे. Varun is the easy one. Yes.
हाँ.
सर ध्रुव बैठा है यहाँ पे क्या इजी मार्क में for a film that's talking so much about prejudice and stereotype, I'm like, what is the Sterling Brown character if not a series of stereotypes? And again, the film is going to be like, oh, but we are going for that. You're not going for that tone
You're
in
not
the
going for
family
that at
drama.
all.
You're going
Yeah,
for
yeah,
that
you're not
tone
going
in
for
the
that at all.
publishing industry.
Yeah.
So don't come
I mean,
with these-
Coraline's character I thought was definitely a construct. I was like, ये construct ही है, right? Like किसी ने लिखा है पक्का ये, like in the sense that ये
Yeah, she
fiction
didn't
होगा
seem
picture के
real.
अंदर में.
Yeah,
No,
She's
it's
supposed to be
like
the
he's-
real thing.
he's gay, so he is sexually promiscuous. He's gay, so it's
Yeah.
okay to be philandering or cheating or whatever. He's a drug dealer. He's got men in shorts roaming. Like,
Or the
really,
abuser, I
aren't-
guess, not a
This is
dealer.
the
yeah.
this is like
But maybe, but
I
whatever.
do you
yeah,
think?
drug abuser, sorry.
I like the birdcage by the way, but this is like birdcage level of humor in 2024. What are you doing?
No, but I wanted to
Even-
ask,
even
do you
this is
think?
boring.
No, do you think? And this is giving Cord Jefferson probably a lot of credit, and this is just a speculation
I
on
mean,
my
the
part.
Academy is giving him a lot of credit. So.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
Do you think that the sections with the family are artificial because it sort of wants to critique him on the fact that his life is as artificial as the stuff
The
that
only
he's
point- the
critiquing
only point where the
representationally?
I don't think they put so much thought into.
Nahin,
Yeah,
no?
it's
I
it's
also
not.
don't think so. I was just questioning. I
Only
was
point I
thinking a lot.
If
think
they
is
had put
actually
so much thought into it, they would have tried to adapt it better to suit the tonality of the current
yes.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That is
exactly.
my
Yeah,
biggest problem with it. It just
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it's a movie from 2023.
Hmm.
yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Maybe that's
And I
why it
mean,
got maybe that's why it got
that's what we were discussing,
the
right? Yeah.
academy. Yeah, because
The
it is not good
softness of
art.
the critique also, I think, is what appeals to the
Yeah.
Academy. Like, I know it was doing the
Because
whole
the academy is like
Oscars are also bad
academy is
and
like
whatever,
not
but
too
yeah.
aggressive.
Listen, I genuinely think like this entire entertainment industry is a little shaken up by this right now. The reason why Yellowface got so much popularity last year is
Yeah.
the same reason why this movie has gotten this much popularity. It's just suddenly
Congratulations, you have
you're
understood the Oscars. They have always
Yeah.
been
Yeah.
like
sorry.
Also.
you have understood the Oscars. They have always been like this. It doesn't matter
No,
how
but
the
I mean,
industry works. They have
we're
always
just
been like this.
discrediting the fact that there is a writer's
This is the
branch
part.
that thinks the screenplay is actually good,
Hmm.
which has me really concerned. Like, what are they voting for?
Hmm.
Hmm.
If
That's
this is
true. I
their
We
mean,
know
opinion of
exactly what they're voting for, and that is why the movie proves the Academy is proving the movie right also. That you are
I
proving
to
you're nominating me because of so many things.
I to
But it's
think
also
the
not
Amar this full conspiracy theorist ki academy mein votes don't matter, academy decides.
no, no,
It's like
Academy.
that
Eh,
movie,
No, no,
right?
you're not getting my point. You're not getting my point. Academy where votes matter. Academy is also filled with people who want to be politically correct because they are completely beholden to the politics of.
because I mean, see, that scene is funny where they are like, we want to give black voices voice,
Yeah,
and
Yeah,
then the
yeah,
two
yeah.
people are sitting
And
there
then
and they're
sitting
like,
on the right
the
side.
yeah.
fuck
And
is
what do you
this?
think? And why do you think American Fiction is getting nominated? Precisely because there must have been a
Yeah.
scene in that entire room where the voting is going on, and they are like, we need to give black people voices. What is the black
Woi. Yeah,
fiction?
it's the yeah, but
There
which
you
is
go.
sad, of course. But like, I mean, I do think it's because the film just doesn't is not ready to get its hands dirty into even dramatizing the quote
Yeah.
unquote fuck novel, which is what Bamboozled actually goes for. Where it's like
Oh,
Yes.
it totally goes for it and is almost
totally goes.
vile in the imagery it sort of puts out.
I
And
am
Spike Lee was
I am
criticized for it
just
also. So.
sad that they did not come up with dialogues where they could have just used the title of the book in so many ways. There
Yeah.
Yes.
are puns lying out there. Like if you can
Yes.
play like whatever that Pokemon game was where people would go out there and catch
Pokemon Go.
Pokemon
Pokemons.
Go.
If you could
Pokemon
do
Go.
that, you could do that with this particular
Pokemon Go.
You sound like
What?
more boomer and millennial than we are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you
like
sounded so
yeah, you
young
could
and
do that.
old at the
There's
same time.
so many.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So, but point is,
I can't
you
imagine
could
Amartya knowing what Pokemon Go is.
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
not that old.
He's not 50.
I'm
Yeah,
not
but he lives in Jalpaiguri.
जलपाईगुड़ी में पोकेमोन बहुत मिलते थे पोकेमोन गो खेलने के टाइम so yeah
That
okay,
sounds like
no, but that
that
was
sounds
not
like
the point. The point was
Anyways,
that he
yeah,
fucks like that. Oh my God. But
yes
basically the movie doesn't even utilize that. It is so sad because
yeah,
there were so many great ways of just you could just use subtle dialogues where people are maybe struggling to spell it
yeah.
out in a very fancy high tea society where they
Hmm.
are like,
The
oh,
F
that's
word.
the book but we can't really name
F
it
word.
It's
Yes.
kind of
it's the
vibe
F
that they
word
go
and
for.
they use the N word inside of it a lot, but man,
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that there's no better way than I'm so sorry for this Elliot, but there's no better way than coming up with an Elliot level like party also in such a and they're not utilizing that opportunity. It's just
um,
sad. It is
I mean,
just
what
Yeah.
sad.
is not really so actually, I feel like this is a cultural issue. Okay, so
Hmm.
Indians, our perception of any kind of art that comes from the West is not
Hmm.
something that's really delving too deep in the literary aspect of it.
Hmm.
Rather, it's more on the subtext aspect of it. They
Hmm.
care really more about the subtext rather than how you have wordplay and everything like that. I saw
Hmm.
this a lot when my wife is Tamil. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
also kind of Tamil. I'm really a fake
Hmm.
Tamil, but I started watching Tamil movies with her, and then she said, "Ki, like like this guy, Crazy Mohan is his writer. He keeps
Hmm.
writing like dialogues which have a lot of wordplay in them, and this is
Hmm.
something because Tamil in its in the fundamentals of Tamil, many
Hmm.
words have many meanings and they all sound
Hmm.
the same.
Hmm.
Okay, same with Spanish, same with any of the romantic languages,
Hmm.
Portuguese. Uh, you have that wordplay in its nature. English
Hmm.
also has that. Issue
Yeah.
is that English is only respected by the English. Like you'll find you are expecting British direction and British level of dialogue writing from, or like Death of Stalin writing from Americans,
Yeah.
which is not possible.
Yeah.
They will never be able to learn that. They'll only care about, oh, ये जो सामने है, जो थोड़ा नीचे है. They will never care
which is
about
the
what
most
we
low hanging fruit,
What do
which
you
is the most low
Yeah,
hanging
that's
you
why
are
they are, even
overthinking
in terms
it.
of comedy, they're better at physical comedy or
Exactly,
at
yeah, just
situational
slapstick.
comedy than wordplay.
Yeah,
Yes.
even the screwball comedy, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the 1930s, right? When you have
Yeah.
the
Howard
like
Hawks and
the
everyone, right?
Howard Hawks, exactly, yeah. And you
Yeah.
have David Lean's, like the old David Lean, the first David, like
Brief
even
encounter, before brief encounter, all that stuff.
like some directors
Hobson's
will give
choice and stuff
you
like that.
actual
Yes,
wordplay
yes.
in American movies, or like Oscar Wilde will do it. But other than that,
Billy
no one else
Wilder
will
will
do
do
it.
it on some level.
Billy
Oh,
Wilder
God,
might
Bill.
have,
So
but
Of
he's
course,
not
you'll
American.
bring
Billy Wilder
him.
would do it, yeah.
Yeah.
He's not
Like,
American.
that's what I was
he's
going
more,
to say.
he's more speed, breakneck speed. He's more
No, but his
speed
noirs are
than
very funny
actually
as well.
accuracy.
He's not American though, no?
Right.
He's not. He's
Yeah.
Austrian.
Yeah. But also, one credit
tells
I
you
think.
humor
American
comes from
fiction,
blood.
guys. American
No,
fiction. Any
again,
other?
I think I
humor
liked.
is American
I think
fiction.
I liked American fiction because
It is
I
American
think,
fiction.
yeah. Well, that's number one, and number two is I think
He has finally liked a movie. It
yes,
should
I have
get the
finally
Oscars.
liked the movie.
No, yeah. Right now, he was watching
Gaurav,
Poor Things, and he's like the first thing that comes out of in the messages is fuck Bradley Cooper for Maestro, and I was like, क्या भाई Poor Things अच्छी लगी उसमें उस Maestro को क्या गाली फिर से देना है? As in there was
Dude,
some
yeah,
because
Maestro
particular
was
nobody
very
element.
appreciates the
really.
same. The first act and second act, monochrome color. I'm like,
You could have
Okay.
used his nose as a splice on the moviola.
yes, exactly. Yep.
You know
No,
how
but
they have like
also
the Rorschach drawing? They'll have that with his
Rorschach
nose.
drawing, yeah,
Nose.
yes, yes. No, but also
Yeah.
I
Again,
think even
after you're
even
done
if
talking about American fiction, I have 5 book
5
recommendations.
book recommendations. So be prompt
even if
with
And we
Sudden-
have to
suddenly
trash
viewers-
the Sterling
I
Brown.
think we are bashing. I think I am bashing this movie a bit too much, considering the fact that I like this movie more than all of you.
But
Yeah.
you
And
did
that's
that with a
more
lot of
because-
films. Dhruv also does that.
Not really, not really. I'm not you.
For
So-
Yeah.
evidence of Dhruv doing the same thing, please go watch the Archie's live stream where he was like, "I'll be kind, I'll be good." Spend the first
Yes,
5
and
minutes
then
of
he
his talk
starts
time
going
to trash
full
the
on.
film.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't like the movie though.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Nobody's
Reminds
saying you did. I'm just anyway. So
Yeah,
You
we're not
remind
accusing
me
you
of
of bad
Maestro.
taste.
even
You
if all
remind
of
me
them
of the character in Maestro of
Yes.
saying you're a good husband. Yes.
yes, yes,
Are we predicting his future? Oh no.
yes.
Amartya, go ahead. Complete your sentence.
No, I am completing, but I'm also responding to the good jokes. Because there are great jokes.
Yes.
But the thing about is, and though there are some good jokes in American fiction which I actually like.
The relationship with the sister and the
Yes.
and brother, I think, is very
Yes.
good. Briefly,
That I
brief
like.
as it is. Yeah.
Yes, and also, I think we criticize the Oscars a lot, but I think Oscar nominations really
You criticize the Oscars a lot.
we
We
all
all-
do.
we-
Come on,
we
why
do.
are you putting yourself into a pedestal?
You though don't say you don't criticize anything, okay? You criticize
criticize
everything,
everything.
which is
You
every
criticize
living
everything.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing about it is the Oscar nominations put movies up a pedestal, which is good for movies like this.
Yep.
Because I can guarantee you that if this movie hadn't been nominated, this movie
Yep.
would have been shown in VOD and nobody would have cared. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the nomination had come out, people saw this, and I'm glad because
I also saw
comedies
because
like,
of that only.
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
very
comedies
honest.
comedies like this should get more love, honestly. I'm glad that comedies are
Not
getting
sure about that, but
I don't
okay.
even think it's a
Quality
comedy.
matters.
Comedy,
quality
yes, sir.
It is sort of a comedy.
Quality
right?
matters, I
It's a
guess.
dramatic comedy or a comedic drama on
Yeah,
some level.
it's a dark comedy, I
Comedic
guess.
drama, you can
Also,
say.
like American fiction's design is very clear, right? It's produced by MGM. It's supposed to be
Yes.
Amazon's big push for the Oscar.
Yes.
And this is what you came up with, really?
Yeah.
No, that's also because they were looking for what is in the stable to push, and they only found this as an awards bait. We also need to understand what is an awards bait in the current climate, which we will describe more in the Oscars podcast. We are not going there, but it's also because I think some of the one-liners and some of the jokes and some of the clever barbs which are coming, again, it's like subtlety and jokes depend. The degrees of jokes and the degrees of delivery of these jokes depend from era to era, depend from people to people, depend from cleverness to cleverness. The people who are loving this movie, they are loving it because all these things which they have harbored inside them, a movie is showing them. And for the academy to like this is because they are showing it in a much more palatable way. Unlike, say, Bamboozled by Spike Lee, which was showing the same thing, but it was so direct, so in your face that the academy got scared and they were like, "What the fuck?"
Not only Academy got scared, it was super
Everybody got scared.
controversial with everyone. Yeah, which I was
Yeah,
like, when I watched it, I was like, people were like, "This is serious."
people were
Spike
like,
Lee's reconstructing minstrelsy. I was like,
yeah, yeah,
"Have you seen the mode in which he's operated, and how
yeah,
can it not be
exactly.
Yeah.
satire or parody?"
People were
Anyways,
like, Spike Lee is doubling down on the racism. I'm like, what are you talking about?
yeah.
Like,
Anyways,
and so I think Gord Jefferson trying to be Spike Lee, don't bother. You are
I
too
don't think he's trying to be, because the
He's
aesthetic
trying.
is
No, I
not
think
nearly as
it's
ambitious
He's
as
getting an
Spike Lee.
yeah.
endorsement though. He's getting an
But
endorsement.
that's probably
First
the. I
film.
mean, Spike Lee would
he's
endorse
getting
this
an
over Green
endorsement.
Book, na?
He's getting an
Like,
endorsement probably because of his Succession ka credentials. He was a
okay.
writer on Succession, if I'm not
Oh, he's a
mistaken.
right.
I
Okay,
did
okay, okay, okay.
I did like the whiskey joke. To be fair to the
Oh,
The
the
film,
whiskey
like
whiskey
joke
joke.
is fantastic.
it's
Yes,
very
And
good.
the
that's
whiskey joke is fantastic. I love
What
that.
is the
those are
alcohol
best
joke?
moments.
Elaborate to the
It's
teetotaler.
a different to the
Red
reformed
label, blue
alcoholic
label,
as
and
it's
black
Oh
label.
yes, but but this one seemed like a red label, not a black label or
Yes.
whatever it
absolutely.
was.
Yeah.
No, this
The
No,
this
no,
film
it feels
itself.
like Harra. It feels like officer's choice. You
no,
buy
no, no, no,
outside
no. Oh, come on,
Ghaziabad.
oh, come on. This is Blender's Bread. This is not Officer's Choice. Come on. This is Blender's
Anyways,
Bread.
okay, fine. Go
More
ahead.
like
Five.
I'll
Amartya,
meet
you have
you at
3 minutes.
DSP, sir.
No, no, I'm done. I said the
Okay.
good thing. I'm done.
Indra, then you have 5 minutes to
For book
list the
recommendations.
books.
Yes.
Yes, I shall go ahead with them. Okay, of
Yes.
course, the first book though was, of course, Erasure by
Yes.
Percival Everett, because that's
Yeah.
the material that the film is based upon.
Yeah.
The next book though is something that I think everybody should read because of how greatly it's written. Like, leave
Hmm.
everything. This is what reading a satire should make you feel like. It makes you feel
Hmm.
something so strongly, which is The Sellout by Paul Beatty. So
Hmm.
there's that, and it's completely based on
The
the
sellout or sellout?
official The Sellout.
Okay.
Oh, is it just Sellout? I think The
No, I'm
Sellout.
asking because I'm writing the titles. That's it.
Oh, okay. I
How
generally,
are
In
like, I
you?
copied this from someplace, so I don't think I'm
okay.
generally I get these things wrong. So
That's fine. I'm putting it so hopefully people will get it right.
Paul
Ultimate
Beatty.
vote
Then
of
how
confidence.
many Paul Beattys have written sellout titled
yeah,
novels?
so
मतलब मैं
Yes,
author का नाम नहीं
mainly
डाल रहा ना,
covered.
but okay.
that was a
Okay.
The
good one.
next one's of obviously Yellow Face by R.K. Kwang.
RF,
Like, it's a book that has
RF.
been popularized
RF
by Book
Kwan.
Talk.
Mm-hmm.
RF Kwan.
But I do think, like, there's by the it sizzles out in the same way as American fiction does, but
Hmm.
the concept of it is great. Only here we
Hmm.
are, instead of talking about black politics, we are talking about Asian politics,
Asian. Mm-hmm.
and the same thing essentially in the light of the publishing industry. So it's a
Sure.
very quick read. It's
Mm-hmm.
really, like, nice to read. Otherwise,
Which part of
a
Asia does
classic.
it deal with?
Sorry.
Which part of
Which part of
Asia does it deal
Asia?
with? Which country?
I
Which
think
nation?
they're dealing with the Chinese
Americans?
history and
Okay.
like a lot of wars and everything. So
Why
that.
did you look disappointed?
Sad to
हाँ
be
वरुण
kind
का
to the Chinese. I'm not very fond of them as a
अच्छा
country.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Okay.
okay.
That's a
I
legitimate
may be
complaint.
wrong. I may be wrong. I may have forgotten.
वो
So
it's fine. He's not
don't
fond of anyone
don't trust my
in
words.
any
it's
place
it's an
ever in the
Asian
world.
American. It's about Asian American and Chinese laborers in World War One. Is what
Okay.
Yeah.
Wikipedia says. I have no clue.
Okay.
I've
Okay,
never.
so
Yes,
Yeah,
it
I
is.
only
It
I'd,
heard
is.
of this
I'd
book.
heard of a
Yeah.
similar book, but that was totally different.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Ahindra. I was about to say
yes,
Amartya. Never mind.
yes.
Yeah.
Two more. Okay.
Hmm.
She has
The
never
other
felt
one
so
is
insulted.
Shut up,
Somebody
he's
almost
Ahindra.
called her
insulted all the
Amartya.
time compared to this. Don't worry.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
The
Ahindra.
next
Number
one
4.
is the
Sorry.
next one is the next one is Invisible Man by Ralph
Okay.
Ellison,
Hmm.
because it's a classic, and it's so bizarre, but it's
Hmm.
great. The other thing is, because especially because Varun mentioned Get Out, I think this
Hmm.
is a book that like all of you should pick up and read because it's a fascinating idea. So it's a book called We Cast a Shadow,
Okay.
where it's a biracial son. So the father is constantly asking the child to sometimes appear black and sometimes appear white, according to what
Interesting.
they feel convenient. So
Hmm.
it's also very well
It's like a
written, but
passing
the
narrative, is
politics
it?
is
Sort of like that? Like a
yeah, yeah,
passing.
yeah. Of course,
Okay, okay.
yeah, but
Got it.
it is a very it does make you sit and ponder, and there are humor elements to it just because of how your identity can switch. And of
Sure.
course,
Hmm.
it does come in with a lot of immigrant identities, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
etc. There's a lot of
Got it.
conversation around it.
Sure.
So yes, that yeah,
Okay.
that I'm done.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for.
I'm sort of I'm what they
Hmm?
call a troglodyte. What is a passing narrative?
So passing narrative is sort of like
Best example
the
is a movie called
character.
Passing, which you can watch. The best example to
You can
understand
watch actually the Rebecca Hall,
Rebecca
right?
Hall. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Directed Passing with. But anyways, the concept is basically, I think, black Americans who had
Who
features.
look,
Mulatto, I
who have
think,
lighter
quote
features, who have
unquote, mulatto
lighter
was the lighter
features than,
features. They could
yeah,
pass as being white. And sort
yeah.
of
Okay.
took the social advantages from whatever,
Mm.
it was something they used to assimilate into like society
Yeah,
before,
Obama,
and
and the
maybe still,
basically,
yeah.
basically
yeah,
Obama.
and the
Yeah. Okay.
movie, yeah, and the movie was very good. To be very honest,
Yeah.
that movie was
Nini
excellent.
Passing is very good. The movie is very,
But
very good. And it's
Obama could
also
not
inspired.
pass for biracial. Like he
Who?
is, but he could pass for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh, I think that should we end on that note. No,
I
I
mean,
was,
we
I
No,
wanted to
was,
trash
can we
the
end on
brown
something else,
norm.
please?
I mean, okay. And no, I was about to say that, I'm surprised in American fiction, I didn't hear any of you mention adaptation by any chance. I was consistently thinking, especially in the ending, about adaptation. The Charlie Kaufman written, Spike
Yeah.
Jonze
I
directed,
mean, the movie needed to be better.
fantastic,
No,
fantastic film. Hmm?
I mean, the movie needed to be better for me to even think about adaptation. No.
Okay, fair enough. I was thinking about the ending, and because that film
Yeah, it
sort
was
of
the
deals with
different.
narrative in a way where it goes from a
If
real
you,
narrative and slips into a
what
fiction.
is it? If you put a Deus Ex Machina, God help you.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, we should adaptation is fantastic. Huh? Charlie Kaufman in general is, I think, but
Yes.
other opinions are available for that. But I think thank you. We are done today. We have extend. I think today's discussion was very good, even though we didn't have people interacting with us as much as last time. Varun
Very
was here, na? So
disappointed in
कौन interact
Sanjeev.
करेगा?
Yes.
अरे
Varun
he
was
must
here.
be.
कौन interact करेगा?
हाँ,
He in the chat.
he's the one who
Arey, last
interacts
Sanjeev is
otherwise.
so busy.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Sanjeet is
He
probably
was
busy shooting something, I think. So,
No,
Some
anyways.
excuse for Aryan
he's
has.
flying to my house right now. In three
Oh,
days,
is
he's
he?
going to be
Okay.
coming to my house.
Okay.
Yeah, it's for our friend's birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
But okay, so thank you so much for listening to this episode. Next week is probably the biggest episode of this Oscar thingy because it's got two heavyweights, one fairly heavyweight, I suppose, in terms of awards contention. One of them is Killers
I
of the
thought you were
Flower
just
Moon
calling
by
me fat. Okay.
And how am
no,
I supposed to have zone of interest for that?
not the people, guys. I was saying the films are heavyweights. Uh,
Wow. Wow.
Heyman
Wow.
said that. Okay, that's why I
We
addressed
are,
it. We do not do fat shaming here at all.
Yeah,
Wow.
I won't
But
have you on this.
shut up.
Otherwise,
Uh,
Varun and I could ourselves pull the weight of the podcast.
oh God, guys, that was not okay.
Never
Anyways,
vote
moving
Americans
on.
can
We
try to
will,
be
we
assisted.
will,
never vote
we,
Americans can
we
never
will
be
not
assisted.
be address. We will not be talking about big films, but long films. Whatever take whatever connotation
Now
you
That
you're
want
just
means a
from
making
lot
it.
it
of people
dirty.
are being
Now
Don't
you're just
gesture
making
like
it
that.
dirty, man. Now,
Yes.
Dhruv, I think you clearly have seen that ad with Ranveer Singh.
Yes. This is now podcast. This is now NC-17 podcast.
See, you have made that NC-17 by yourself, Amartya. So please do not blame me. Okay, I would prefer you guys not to swear, but you do swear every episode, even when you're praising stuff. So I can't help it.
Thank you,
Anyways, next week we'll be discussing again the third time Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, which
Third time?
I mean, third time we are discussing that film, which is quite a bit to be honest. And then
Yeah.
we'll also be discussing that along with
Oppenheimer and zone of interest.
That
Christopher
good.
Nolan's Oppenheimer, which is another
Yes.
3 hour extravaganza of montage. And then there's
Zone
1
of
hour,
interest.
40-minute Zone of
1 hour
Interest by Jonathan Glazer. So, yep, it's going to be a heavy duty episode, I think. Uh, I got a question at as soon as we are logging off. Yes, Vedansh,
Yes,
we
we do.
do.
Mondays. Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Yep, yep, yep.
Yes.
Please,
We
if
all
you want to
speak on
join the
Mondays.
next episode in company of the lovely comments when we argue about Killers of the Flower Moon and Oppenheimer and Zone of Interest, which I mean, yeah, that episode's going to be a feisty one, I think. But anyways, thank yeah, thank you so
I'll
much for
interact.
listening.
I'll interact via comments next Monday.
I
Because
might
Me too,
I
the
might
same.
Me
also
too. Yeah.
drop out considering
Me
I
too.
might
Me
you
too.
might
I'm
also
interested.
none of you will come, so
I'm
I'll
dropping.
interact with
I'm dropping.
myself.
If we talk,
Are you
yes.
I have
kidding me?
not watched
Are
Zone.
you
What am I
kidding me?
supposed
I'm
to do? Be
dropping out.
Aryan?
I'm dropping
You'll
out.
watch if you want to join next episode, you will find a way to watch Zone.
Yeah.
Invite
We will
Aryan
find a way
for
for you to watch
in,
Zone.
We will find a
invite
way for
Aryan
you
for
to
a
watch.
zone of interest.
Yes.
Physiotherapist
Yes.
talks about Holocaust.
Yes.
What is the yeah, okay. Oh wow, okay. Thank you, Viransh.
I'll
We
be
have
there by.
one listener
Thanks, Vedant.
guaranteed
Yeah.
next time. So I think that's good.
That's more
Anyways,
than what you expect. So thank you. Yeah.
yes, thank you for this episode. I think it was a great discussion. Thank you guys on educating us most about adaptations. I think that was the best part of the discussion. I feel in some ways, but no, thank you again, and take care. Bye. I guess.
Thank you all.
Khatam. Sorry, I forgot. I forgot how to end the
Come on,
podcast.
man. That's
Come.
the
Sorry.